Chapter 339. It was no exaggeration to say that the 16-hour fierce debate and game in Yuzhou was definitely a meeting that could be recorded in the history of Jianghu State. Too many things had happened before and after 16 hours. The attack on Li Honghe was the cause. It ended with the Li family's comeback. The two sides of the Li family's survival affected the great changes in the pattern of the entire southeast. Wu Jingmin, who was deeply rooted in Jianghu and could be called a local tyrant, entered Yuzhou province and became the deputy prime minister of the cabinet. The commander of the Eastern Theater of Operations, Ning Ziyuan, was transferred. The special warfare system was being reformed. The Overwatch Council appeared before everyone's eyes. While the situation in the southeast was in turmoil, the northeast of Jianghu State was also in turmoil. The top leaders of Liaodong and Heilong provinces had been reshuffled, and the official documents had been issued. In addition to the reshuffling of the top leaders who were destined to appear in front of the world, the directors of the Special Operations Bureau of Liaodong and Heilong provinces had also secretly changed their faces. Gain and loss. This was the theme that ran through the entire meeting. The Li family gained something, but the transfer of Wu Jingmin and Ning Ziyuan was also a loss. The Wang family of Beihai gained something. After having no choice but to let the power of the giant group and the Li family infiltrate into Jianghu, the Black Dragon province had quietly been replaced by the lineal descendants of the Wang family of Beihai. But compared with the power of a province and the chaotic situation that the southeast would face, the gains and losses of the Wang family of Beihai were obviously unbalanced. Kunlun City also gained something. The murderous weapon-setting sun, which they had been plotting for many years, finally arrived in Kunlun City from Sai City, which was extremely important to them. However, handing over the Southeast Overwatch Council to the Li family was clearly not what they wanted to see. The giant group also gained something. Ning Ziyuan was transferred. General Wang Wandian, the commander of the Blood Battalion of the Border Control Corps, was transferred to the Eastern Theater of Operations as the commander. This had been regarded by the outside world as the first step of Dongqing Wudi's strong control of the military. But Wang Wantian's transfer to the Eastern Theater of Operations was also the beginning of the Dongqing clan's abandonment of the dominance of the Border Control Corps. This was bound to be a far-reaching meeting. Many of the effects would only appear after several years or even longer. This time, only the Jianghu and Eastern Theater of Operations were moving in the southeast. However, with the emergence of the Overwatch Council and the resurgence of the Li family, the entire southeast was shrouded in a fog. Regardless of whether it was the people involved or the bystanders, no one could see the fog clearly. Ning Ziyuan couldn't see through the fog either. But everything in the southeast had nothing to do with him. The day after the meeting, he walked into the army headquarters building and got his new appointment from Dongqing Wudi. He was going to take off the military uniform that he had worn for most of his life, take off the rank of general that he had long been accustomed to, and head for the Southern Heaven region. All of his files will be sealed in the top secret file indefinitely. From that moment on, he had nothing to do with the Southeast or even Jianghu State. He was the commander of the Tiannan Freedom Corps. He would lead the elites there to fight against the Annan State and the Purgatory of Heaven capital. Until Tiannan became a new province of Jianghu State. Open up new territories. This was the duty of a soldier, and its weight was comparable to that of protecting the country. However, only a small number of people understood the deeper meaning behind this transfer. To be enemies with the Purgatory of Heaven capital. This sentence implied too much malice and conspiracy. It was already night in Wuxia. In the dead of night. The courtyard of the Eastern Theater of Operations was filled with the vicissitudes of life and loneliness. The lights in Ning Ziyuan's mansion were off. Ning Ziyuan, dressed in plain clothes, stood in front of the window and looked up at the starry night sky. This was the last night he would stay in Wuxia, Jinling, and the Eastern Theater of Operations. Tomorrow morning, the new commander of the Eastern Theater of Operations, Wang Wandian, would arrive in Jinling. After the handover of work between the two sides, he would set off for Tiannan. The army ministry urged him urgently. It seemed that both the giant group and the southeast group wanted him to leave Jinling as soon as possible. Tomorrow had not come yet. Today had passed. The Eastern Theater of Operations held a simple but grand farewell banquet. Now that the banquet was over, Ning Ziyuan didn't know what to do for a while. Tonight, he was neither the commander of the Eastern Theater of Operations nor the commander of the Tiannan Freedom Corps. He was just Ning Ziyuan. Ning Ziyuan stood quietly. The cold moon on the horizon rose and began to set again. The courtyard of the Eastern Theater of Operations became quieter and quieter. Ning Ziyuan sighed. His eyes showed no reluctance to say goodbye to the past or excitement to welcome the future. They were dull and almost empty. Insomnia? A somewhat hoarse voice sounded behind Ning Ziyuan without warning. Ning Ziyuan turned around reflexively. The living room of the mansion was dark. A man's figure appeared on the sofa without anyone noticing. He raised his hand and waved it. In the night, it could be vaguely seen that he was holding a bottle of wine. "What are you doing here?" Ning Ziyuan frowned and quietly closed the curtains in front of the window. "Don't be so nervous." The black shadow laughed in a low voice. His hoarse voice was a little magnetic. "I have wine. Do you want to drink?" Ning Ziyuan came over and sat opposite the black shadow. He didn't turn on the light. In the dark, his tone was with suppressed anger. "You came to me just to drink with me? Don't get excited." The black shadow said with a smile, "I happened to come to Jianghu to patrol. I knew that you were leaving tomorrow, so I came to have a look. Don't worry, no one will find out that I have been here. In the past. Now is not the past." Ning Ziyuan interrupted the black shadow's voice with some gloominess. He used to be the commander of the Eastern Theater of Operations and a core minister of the Wang family of Beihai. The black shadow in front of him was also an important figure in the Wang family of Beihai. The two had occasional contact. Even if they were discovered, it would not be a big deal. But it was now. He left Jinling. It was almost equivalent to leaving the Southeast Group. He was originally a member of the Li family. After the collapse of the Li family, this identity did not seem obvious. But now the Li family reappeared. If he went to Tiannan, it was tantamount to re-entering the Li family's camp. Now he was meeting the man in front of him. Once he was discovered, it was very likely to cause a stir. The living room was quiet for a while. The black shadow shook his head and then said seriously, "Don't worry, there will be no problem. Don't be careless." Ning Ziyuan said in a low voice. The black shadow in front of him was Migrez, who Li Honghe personally mentioned to him in Linpen. He was different from Ning Ziyuan, whose code name was Alcade. He was different from Wu Jingmin and even Zhang Qi. Migrez's identity was the most hidden. Everything he showed to the world was completely flawless. Even Zhang Qi, the current minister of the Southeast Special Warfare Headquarters, might be exposed. But Migrez would not. As long as he did not stand out himself, he would hide forever and did not have to worry about being called a traitor. With such a hidden identity, he was bound to play a greater role in the future of the Li family. He was even more useful than Ning Ziyuan. "I won't come if I have nothing to do. But you will leave tomorrow. Time is a little tight, so I can only take some risks to come here." In the darkness, Migrez put down the bottle in his hand and took out a business card from his pocket. "In recent years, I have dealt with a lot of things in Tiannan on behalf of Tianzong. So I have made some other arrangements secretly. When you arrive in Tiannan, you can contact this person." Migrez said softly, "This is a small gift. When the time is right, you can give it to Tianlan for me. As his uncle, I didn't talk too much with him when I met him last time. Have you met Tianlan?" Ning Ziyuan's tone was a little surprised. "I met him once, but we didn't talk much." Migrez shook his head. "You are the most suitable person to go to Tiannan at present. Tianzong's mind is a little messy these days. Under the guidance of Wang Qinglei, he really wants to send you to Tiannan to be the enemy of the Purgatory of Heaven capital." Wang Qinglei said it was a dog-eat-dog situation. "It's ridiculous." Ning Ziyuan took a deep look at him. He could know the content of the conversation between Wang Qinglei and Wang Tianzong. This was enough to show Migres's status in the Wang family of Beihai. Tianzong trusts you so much. Ning Ziyuan's tone was a little emotional. In the current situation, if Tiannan was the most worthy place of Zhongzhou state's attention, then Migres was the most special person in Tiannan. He was the only person who could wander between the Wang family of Beihai, the Li family, and the purgatory of Heaven capital and could be completely trusted. He dealt with a lot of things on behalf of Wang Tianzong. God knew what he did for the Li family when dealing with those things. I'm different from you. Migres was silent for a while, then slowly said, at least on the surface, I have nothing to do with the Li family. You're really different. Ning Ziyuan nodded. Migres smiled and said calmly, let's not talk about this. I'm here today to tell you that after you go to Tiannan, you should act quickly. Although the Li family has made a comeback, the situation is not good. Whether Jianghu can be stable or not depends on Tiannan. If there is no accident, the next few years should be the best opportunity for the Li family. You don't have any scruples in Tiannan. Scruples? Scruples. The hall began to become quiet. Ning Ziyuan seemed to really have scruples. After a long silence, he said flatly, what scruples can I have? That's good. Migres smiled and said, even if there is, it should not exist for the time being. Ning Ziyuan narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. Some time ago, the power of the purgatory of Heaven capital in Tiannan was adjusted. Do you know about this? Migres asked. Ning Ziyuan raised the corner of his eyes, nodded, and said expressionlessly, I know. Sunluo Hall is stationed in Tiannan now. So it's perfect for you to go to Tiannan at this time. Migres smiled and said, you lead the Tiannan Freedom Corps, and there are old subordinates in Tiannan who are most worthy of your trust. Everything is promising. Ning Ziyuan did not speak. His most trusted old subordinates, naturally, they were the real direct subordinates he had cultivated in the Eastern Theater of Operations for many years. And these direct subordinates were all sent to East Island in the final battle of Heaven capital 3 years ago. At that time, everyone in Zhongzhou state was talking about the madness of Ning Ziyuan and the Eastern Theater of Operations. And the final battle of Heaven capital did not disappoint anyone. More than 100 experts above the fire-flaming realm in the Eastern Theater of Operations died in Heaven capital. This directly led to Ning Ziyuan's difficult life in the Eastern Theater of Operations in the past 3 years because he had lost a large number of elite direct subordinates. Many people laughed at Ning Ziyuan. They said that he was a great general who was willing to send his trusted subordinates to die. However, very few people knew that Ning Ziyuan had indeed sent his most trusted troops to their deaths. But at the same time, he gave them a new life. After the new life, they were no longer soldiers of Zhongzhou state. Today, 3 years later, those who died in the battle and disappeared in the battlefield of Heaven capital were still alive and formed an organization famous in the dark world. Purgatory of Heaven capital. Sunluo Hall. And all his decisions were based on Migres's suggestions, and what he did was even crazier than Migres's request. The plan had begun long ago. 3 years ago, or even before that. Chapter 340. In Wang Xingxiao's memory, Wang Tianzong seemed to be looking at the sea forever. The entire Beihai province was like 2 islands floating in the sea. Therefore, the sea in Beihai province was extraordinarily magnificent. Wang Tianzong often stood alone on the stage of Formidable Person and looked at the sea. The ancient stone platform, the raging sea, and the silent man. A man who was silent like a mountain and indomitable, blending the sea with the history and glory of the Wang family of Beihai. In Wang Xingxiao's mind, this was the most specific and vivid image of his father. The stage of Formidable Person was empty and ancient. The undulating sound of the tide spread here very clearly. Wang Xingxiao, who returned to Beihai province from Huading, boarded the stage of Formidable Person and looked at Wang Tianzong's back. Wang Tianzong's back was not outstanding. The stage of Formidable Person was not outstanding either. But amidst the ordinariness, it seemed that even the vast sea had become ordinary and unremarkable. In this vast and ancient space, the invincible sword intent, the power that could overturn the imperial court, the matchless and ambitious heroes, the devastatingly beautiful women, and everything else seemed to become plain and ordinary. Hundreds of years of romance and glory of the Wang family of Beihai gathered here. It was too heavy here, so it looked particularly solemn. Every time Wang Xingxiao came here, he could clearly feel a kind of power called responsibility. This power scared him and made him crazy. Only by standing here could he truly feel the weight of the future of the Wang family of Beihai on him. That kind of weight suppressed his soul and made him not dare to stop for a moment. It made him desperately want to reach his strongest state. Because he knew very well that his father, who was looking at the sea here, would eventually grow old and die, and he would take his place. He would watch the sea his father had been looking at all his life and bear the responsibility he was bearing now. Inheritance, responsibility, sustenance, in the wash of honor and history, everything was clear and almost naked. Wang Xingxiao took a deep breath, walked to Wang Tianzong, and whispered, "Dad." Wang Tianzong nodded and asked calmly, "Just arrived?" "Just arrived." Wang Xingxiao nodded. "How is Huading?" Wang Tianzong glanced at his son. This question was deep. But as the future patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai, Wang Xingxiao was destined not to be a martial arts maniac who only knew martial arts. Therefore, he thought about it seriously and said slowly, "It's still stable. Uncle Yu and Uncle Lu are enough to stabilize the overall situation, and second uncle is the mediator. We have developed well in Huading in recent years. Although the conference in Yuzhou province has some influence, it's not a big one." The second uncle was Wang Xiaoyao. Uncle Yu was the current mayor of Huading, Yu Chuanguang. Uncle Lu was Lu Shuanghua, the southern intelligence giant in charge of Jiangnan. These three people were now in Huading, and they were the cornerstone of the Wang family of Beihai's power to stabilize Huading. With them, no matter how much the Wang family of Beihai lost in the Yuzhou conference, Huading would not have any problems. Wang Xingxiao's eyes were a little confused. He didn't believe that his father didn't know about this. Then what did he mean by asking this? Thinking of the recent rumors in some top circles in Huading, Wang Xingxiao narrowed his eyes. Wang Tianzong seemed to know what Wang Xingxiao was thinking. He nodded and said, "Pure light is going to move." Black Dragon Province? Yes, the Longjiang base city. Wang Tianzong said. Longjiang and Black Dragon were two names for the same place. The Longjiang province was the new name of the Black Dragon province. On the current map of Zhongzhou province, only the old map would mark the Black Dragon province, and the new map had changed it to the Longjiang province. When the Li family made a comeback in Jianghu, Sai City, which had always had a great say in the northeast, also gave enough bargaining chips. Liaodong belonged to Kunlun City. The leadership of the Longjiang province was in the hands of the Wang family of Beihai. The Wang family of Beihai naturally needed a loyal and outstanding person to preside over the overall situation of the Longjiang province. Yu Chuanguang was undoubtedly the best choice. He was qualified enough to be transferred from the mayor of the most developed municipality. If it was the governor, it was not even a transfer. Therefore, Yu Chuanguang would definitely become the top leader of the Longjiang province. Although his rank would not change, his status would be different. However, Wang Xingxiao was a little hesitant. He hesitated and said slowly, "I'm afraid Uncle Yu doesn't want to move." The Southeast group had been brooding about losing Huading. Over the years, it had never given up fighting for the leadership of Huading. Especially in recent years, the Wang family of Beihai had established a cooperative relationship with Kunlun City. Lu Shuanghua's Jiangnan society entered Huading forcefully. After Mayor Yu Chuanguang's foundation was stable, the remaining forces of the Southeast group began to gradually become active. In 3 years, Huading was extremely lively. It was not realistic to take back Huading now, but as long as they waited for 2 or 3 years and operated well, there was a good chance that Yu Chuanguang would replace Huading's current top leader, Zhong Yue, and enter the decision-making committee. If he was asked to leave Huading at this time, he would inevitably have other ideas. He's the most suitable candidate. Wang Tianzong said expressionlessly, looking determined. And it's also a good thing for him to leave Huading now. There's no hope for him to stay in Huading. Wang Xingxiao's face changed, and he said thoughtfully, "Will you?" Wang Tianzong nodded. Although the Wang family of Beihai was the leader of the Southeast Group, the Southeast Group also involved the Wang family of Beihai to some extent. At least when there were internal problems in the Wang family of Beihai, some big shots of the Southeast Group couldn't express their opinions, let alone change the plan at will. Wang Qinglei officially entered the decision-making committee 2 years ago. In the change of office 3 years later, no matter what problems there were in the Wang family of Beihai, the Southeast Group was bound to push Wang Qinglei to the top. This was related to the survival of the whole group. The whole group must ensure the right to speak after the change of office. Pushing Wang Qinglei was the most sure, and other people were not qualified enough. If they gave up on Wang Qinglei now, time would be too tight. Even if the Southeast Group was strong, it would be difficult for them to have enough time and resources to nurture another giant candidate. This was something that had been decided many years ago, and it was not easy to change it now. If the Southeast Group pushed Wang Qinglei, it would be difficult to take care of Yu Chuanguang's promotion. Wang Qinglei himself would not allow this situation to happen. Therefore, Yu Chuanguang's pursuit of the top leader of Huading was doomed to fail. Even in the next session, the Southeast Group still had no plan to completely take back Huading. And Huading was not the only way to enter the decision-making committee. Longjiang Province was also a good choice. Longjiang was close to Beihai Province and had a vast territory. If Yu Chuanguang managed it as the new back garden of the Southeast Group, he might have a chance 3 years later. I'll talk to him about this when I have time. Wang Tianzong said. Longjiang Province was equally important to him. It was the closest province to Beihai Province. If it was managed well, it could be regarded as the periphery of Beihai Province. And Longjiang was close to Guangdong. If Yu Chuanguang could find a chance to check and balance by Qingxian of the giant group, the Southeast Group would have another bargaining chip in the hands of the general change of office 3 years later. From this point of view, the Wang family of Beihai did not lose out by giving up Jianghu to get Longjiang. Even Jianghu was not completely abandoned. Zhou Yuanshan entered Jianghu as the governor. The top leader was Su Xinghe, the former governor of Jiangnan Province. Jiangnan had always been the traditional territory of the Southeast Group. There was no doubt about Su Xinghe's position. It was still unknown who Jianghu belonged to. Will you talk to him yourself? Wang Xingxiao was a little stunned. Wang Tianzong nodded and said nothing more. Wang Xingxiao fell silent. After a long time, he hesitated and asked, "Dad, you and second uncle." He didn't finish his words. He had rarely been in the Wang family of Beihai in recent years. But he vaguely noticed that there was something wrong between his father and second uncle. Especially after Wang Qinglei entered the decision-making committee. Now almost everyone in Zhongzhou state noticed that there was something wrong with the Wang family of Beihai. Although it was not completely out of control for the time being, it was not something that Wang Tianzong could suppress alone. The atmosphere between the lineal descendants of the Wang family of Beihai and the major branches became more and more delicate. Even the relationship between Wang Xiaoyao and Wang Tianzong, the two brothers, had become a little strange. For example, if it had been before, Wang Tianzong would not have talked to him personally about the matter regarding Yu Chuanguang. Wang Xiaoyao was enough. Wang Xingxiao could even see the crack between his father and second uncle. For the Wang family of Beihai, this was even a fatal crack. Wang Tianzong twitched the corner of his mouth, glanced at his son, and said calmly, "Do your own thing. Don't think too much about the rest." Wang Xingxiao wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. "What's the matter?" Wang Tianzong asked. "I'm going to meditate on the stage of formidable person for a few days and adjust my state to deal with the final maneuver of the two academies." Wang Xingxiao took a deep breath and said calmly. It was close to the end of July. There were about 10 days before the final maneuver. Wang Xingxiao hoped to use the huge psychological pressure on the stage of formidable person to make himself stronger. Wang Tianzong nodded and suddenly said, "Have you ever thought about what will happen if you lose?" Wang Xingxiao suddenly turned to look at his father and said seriously, "Do you think I will lose? If you are sure to win, you won't come back at this time." Wang Tianzong said calmly. Wang Xingxiao was silent. "It's not terrible to lose." Wang Tianzong said, "I lost in the past. The unique skills of the Li family are indeed more flexible than ours under the invincible realm. But as long as we are not dead, we have a chance to turn the tables." Wang Xingxiao took a deep look at his father and asked, "How strong is Li Tianlan now?" "It's hard to say." Wang Tianzong shook his head. "But it's not impossible for you to lose to him. I may leave in a few days, and I should be able to catch up with the final maneuver of the two academies. If I can't make it, you have to be careful of Li Tianlan. Now he is likely to." Before Wang Tianzong finished his words, the phone suddenly rang. In the sound of the waves, the ringtone of the mobile phone was faint but clear. Wang Tianzong calmly took out the mobile phone and answered, saying hello. On the phone, the voice of Lu Shuanghua, who controlled the largest civilian intelligence organization in the south of Jianghu state, sounded. "Your Majesty, my people have confirmed Yuedong's location." Lu Shuanghua smiled bitterly and said with some difficulty, "After she came to Huading, until Li Tianlan went to Lintan, she had been living with him." His words were vague. But Wang Tianzong instantly understood what he wanted to say. The muscles at the corners of his eyes twitched, and an extremely sharp cold light flashed in his eyes. Lu Shuanghua did not continue. Wang Tianzong was also silent and finally hung up. "Dad." Wang Xingxiao looked at Wang Tianzong. "It's all right." Chapter 341. When countless reporters and media were still digging for the truth of the disappearance of Lonely Mountain overnight, the cabinet, the Jianghu provincial government, and the Lin and municipal government had clearly issued a document. In the most official and formal manner, Lonely Mountain was completely removed from the tourist attractions of West Lake. It was no longer a tacit attitude under the guise of renovation. On the edge of the ruins of Lonely Mountain, a sign of a military restricted area was set up. The address of the Southeast Special Warfare Headquarters was in Huading. And Lonely Mountain would become the office of the Southeast Special Warfare Supervision Council. The Supervision Council was a new institution of the Special Warfare System of Jianghu State, different from the Special Warfare Headquarters. The emergence of the Special Warfare Headquarters was actually just the expansion of the power of the Special Warfare System. For the whole system, it was not big enough to subvert the fundamental rules. But the Procuratorate was different. It was a new institution. Different from the division of labor of the party committee and the government in the political circle, and different from the military generals and political generals in the army, the Supervision Council had a single function. In terms of duties, it was more similar to the Discipline Inspection Department, supervising the performance of their duties by various special warfare agencies. It was supervision. It only had the right to supervise. The emergence of any system or any new institution took a relatively long time to become mature and stable. So strictly speaking, the newly established Procuratorate, which only had the right to supervise but not the right to dispose, was actually in a very awkward position. The special warfare system was different from the military and the political circles. Its duties were secret, its power was hidden, and the rules were loose. So even if it had the right to supervise, the scope of supervision was somewhat vague. The director of the Procuratorate was at the same level as the director of the Special Warfare Headquarters, but he did not participate in the meetings of the decision-making committee, and there was no supervisory bureau under him. In addition to the Southeast, the director of the Special Warfare Headquarters concurrently served as the supervisory director in other regions. All this showed that Jianghu State was still in the stage of exploration and observation of this new institution. So Li Honghe's appointment as the director of the Southeast Supervision Council did not bring much power to the Li family. What this position brought to the Li family was more like a reliable protective umbrella. At least when the Supervision Council still existed, neither the Wang family of Beihai nor Kunlun City could join forces to attack the Li family again, because it was equivalent to blatantly trampling on the rules that everyone was abiding by. And with only a dozen people left, the Li family could not use their limited power to do anything against the Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun City. The situation would roughly stabilize. The so-called balance was like this. The current situation was neither good nor bad for the Li family. There were no unexpected surprises, but it was completely in line with expectations. After more than 20 years of dormancy and forbearance, the Li family reappeared on the stage of Jianghu state. This seemed to be an inconspicuous step, but it was the real foundation and starting point. Now it was no longer Li Honghe who stood at the starting point. It was Li Tianlan. Perhaps it was not until today that Li Tianlan really began to shoulder the Li family's burden. Before the Yuzhou conference, Li Tianlan was the hope of the Li family. After the Yuzhou conference, Li Honghe completely fell from the invincible realm. Li Tianlan was everything to the Li family. There shouldn't be too many changes in Jianghu in the next few years. Even the entire Jianghu state, if there are no accidents, will be peaceful for a few years. There are good and bad sides to peace. The good side is that it's safe enough, but the bad side is that it's a pool of stagnant water without any waves. Naturally, there will be no chance. It was a sunny morning in late July. The warm sunshine outside the window shone into the bedroom. In front of the mirror, Qin Weibai, who had just gotten up and her hair was still a little messy, was tidying up his suit for him. She said softly, "That's why I want you to go to Tiannan. No matter what happens in Jianghu state, Tiannan is destined to become another focus of the dark world. The Li family can only develop tepidly in Jianghu. If it wants to rise, it can only be possible in Tiannan, which is destined to be in constant turmoil." Li Tianlan answered and loosened the tie around his neck. Today, he had a series of extremely important social engagements, so he was dressed very formally. He wore a black suit and leather shoes, looking calm and sharp. After the Yuzhou conference, the personnel transfer went quickly. Zhou Yuanshan had already come to Jianghu from Luojing 3 days ago. On the first day of the new governor of Jianghu, he came to visit Li Honghe and made an appointment with Li Tianlan to meet today. It was an unusual meeting. Because Wu Jingmin hadn't left yet. Wu Jingmin hadn't left, so the new governor of Jianghu, Su Xinghe, naturally couldn't come. Wu Jingmin hoped to make full use of these few days to create a situation beneficial to the Li family. So today, Li Tianlan would not only meet Zhou Yuanshan but also Wu Jingmin. To be exact, Wu Jingmin took Li Tianlan and Zhou Yuanshan to visit various powerful figures in Jianghu so that Li Tianlan and Zhou Yuanshan could get their support. Li Tianlan was a little upset. This was the first time he had contacted the high-level political forces of a province. He was not uneasy, but his heart was a little complicated. "There won't be any problem," Qin Weibai said softly. "Don't underestimate Zhou Yuanshan. As the leader fully supported by the giant group after 20 years, his ability and means are absolutely the best." After Wu Jingmin left, there would definitely be people in Jianghu who would change their stance, but there wouldn't be too many of them. Over the years, Wu Jingmin had been very good at controlling Jianghu. Most of Wu Jingmin's forces would support Zhou Yuanshan. At present, Jianghu was already the home ground of the giant group and the Li family. Although Su Xinghe of the Southeast Group occupied the position of the top leader, the biggest help was only Wang Jingxin. The battle between the two sides was destined to be long, and no one could crush the other side at once. But then again, as long as it was delayed, it would be beneficial to the Li family. The next 2 or 3 years were the rarest opportunities for the Li family. "Tianlan, don't worry about Jianghu for the time being. As long as you open up the situation in Tiannan, Jianghu will gradually stabilize. If possible, don't have any concerns. The most important thing is to strengthen yourself. You talk a little too much today." Li Tianlan looked at Qin Weibai and said softly. Qin Weibai froze and suddenly fell silent. "Will you go to Huading with me?" Li Tianlan asked. The final maneuver of the 2 academies was about to begin. Today was also the last day he stayed in Linnan. After meeting with the important members of Jianghu, he would return to Huading and East Emperor Palace, waiting for the start of the final maneuver of the two academies. I'm going to leave for a while. Qin Weibai looked at Li Tianlan's face attentively and said softly. Today? Li Tianlan was stunned for a while and then asked softly. After several days of tenderness and dependence on each other, Li Tianlan heard the parting without any psychological preparation. Yes. Qin Weibai nodded and murmured, I should have left a few days ago, but I've been reluctant to leave. Now I really can't delay it. I'll see you off. Li Tianlan's mouth moved, and his voice suddenly became a little hoarse. No, you go about your business. Flaming fire is by my side. Nothing will happen. Qin Weibai shook her head. The reason why I told you now is that I don't want you to see me off. I wanted to let someone else tell you before I left, but I was afraid that you would be angry. I'd better tell you myself. Li Tianlan didn't know what to say. He opened his hands and subconsciously held Qin Weibai's warm and soft body in his arms. Qin Weibai gently wrapped her arms around Li Tianlan's waist and said with a chuckle, It's not life and death. Why are you so serious? Wait for me. I'll be back in 2 or 3 months at most. At that time, I'll stay with you and won't go anywhere, okay? Okay. Li Tianlan said sullenly. Qin Weibai left his arms, took off a single Buddha bead from her wrist, handed it to Li Tianlan, and said softly, This is for you. This is? Li Tianlan was a little confused. Great Master Wu gave me the Buddha bead. It doesn't mean anything. It's a mascot. I don't like it very much, so I'll give it to you. Qin Weibai said carelessly, and her tone was very natural. Li Tianlan didn't think much and put it on his wrist. Where are you going? Go back to the headquarters first. Qin Weibai hesitated. The headquarters of Samsara doesn't mean much. It's time to give up. I'll go back again. After that, I'll go directly to Snow Country. Li Tianlan nodded and looked at Qin Weibai in front of him. Qin Weibai stood quietly in the sun, beautiful and dreamy, as if transparent. Today was the day of parting. Li Tianlan suddenly felt a little tired and seemed to have no energy to do anything. Go ahead. Today is very important to you. Qin Weibai took Li Tianlan's arm and pulled him out of the door. She said seriously, I'll be back soon. Li Tianlan nodded. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Finally, he turned and went downstairs. Qin Weibai went downstairs with him and watched Li Tianlan get into an Audi at the door. Qin Weibai looked tranquil and gentle. Li Tianlan looked back at her. Qin Weibai smiled and waved her hand. Everything was so natural, as if it was the most ordinary parting. Li Tianlan got into the car. At that moment, Qin Weibai only saw Li Tianlan's side face. She looked at him affectionately and in a trance. The Audi slowly left the villa area. Qin Weibai stood quietly, motionless, like a sculpture. Such a simple parting. But it was the last glance. The light in Qin Weibai's bright eyes changed. All the emotions that pretended to be natural surged in her heart. As Li Tianlan left, she was close to collapse. She couldn't show her reluctance. She couldn't even show sadness. Because what she wanted to tell Li Tianlan was a very common parting. She knew what it meant. It was a deception, the cruelest deception. Because this seemingly casual parting this time, they would never be able to meet again. Cruel. But it was not the cruelest. She had seen the cruelest scene in Heaven Capital 3 years ago. That scene was not the moment when the woman in white pierced the long sword into Li Tianlan's chest. It was the scene after Li Tianlan fell from the air. That was the real cruelty. The Audi disappeared completely from her sight. All the reluctance, all the unwillingness, and all the deep feelings completely collapsed in an instant. Qin Weibai had already burst into tears. She behaved so normally that she didn't even show a trace of reluctance to Li Tianlan. No reluctance was the real reluctance. She bit her lips hard and murmured softly, "I'm sorry." Chapter 342. It was like there would be no reunion and parting. There would be no afterlife in life. That was why Qin Weibai's profile was so clear. It was the last glance before parting. Qin Weibai stood quietly at the door of the villa. Li Tianlan's car had completely disappeared, without a trace. There was a breeze in the sunny Lin'an. The breeze blew the water of the West Lake and seemed to blow away all the spiritual qi in her. Qin Weibai's whole body became empty. There was no hope, no longing, no thoughts, no coldness and gentleness. She was like a body that had lost everything. She was still beautiful, but she was shaking with the wind. She still had too much to say. There were still too many things she wanted to do. But she couldn't say or do anything about it. She didn't even give Li Tianlan a serious hug or kiss. She behaved too normally. Only normality could make Li Tianlan believe in their future. But there was no future. Even this parting was so incomplete. Tears flowed down her delicate face and dripped on the ground. After all her emotions collapsed out of control, there was no pain in her heart, only numbness and emptiness, with a touch of indescribable coldness. Her body seemed to be weightless, floating with the wind, empty, getting higher and higher. There was no foundation or tie, no past and no future. Qin Weibai squatted down with her arms around her shoulders and lowered her head. She was silent, like a child who had been wronged. But what she suffered was not grievance, but the most heart-wrenching coldness and despair. The wind stopped. The wind rose again. Qin Weibai squatted at the door, as still as a sculpture. Lin Fengting, who spent all his time in Lin'an and didn't say a word about the Li family's comeback, walked over quietly and whispered, "When will you go to Snow Country?" "Today." Qin Weibai was silent for a while and whispered. She was in a mess now, but she was unwilling to stand up. To be exact, she was too lazy to stand up. Since she knew there was no future, why did she care so much? "Shall I go with you?" Lin Fengting asked. "No need." Qin Weibai raised her head and looked into the distance. The villa area was very high. Staying at the door, she could clearly see the turbulent and swaying West Lake outside the villa. Her eyes were a little dazed, but her tone was very serious. She whispered, "Sir, please stay in Jianghu State for a few more days. It's not too late to set off after the final maneuver." Lin Fengting raised his eyebrows in confusion. Snow Country has nothing to do with the final maneuver, right? It has something to do with Tianlan. Qin Weibai choked with sobs and took a deep breath. Her perfect and delicate face was like a pear blossom in the rain. There was a kind of softness in her. "I don't want him to go to Snow Country. After the final maneuver, he probably won't be able to go for a while." She knew very well what resistance Li Tianlan would encounter in the final maneuver. Li Beidian, Su Chu, and Ning Qianxing were all severely injured. Yu Qingyan's realm was still low. Although her lethality was terrifying, it was not suitable for her to play in the final maneuver. Now in the East Emperor Palace, there were only Li Tianlan and Du Hanyin, who had barely broken through to the thunder-shocking realm. At most, there was Dongqing Rushi. 3 people. However, the 3 of them would have to face 3 young forces. 3,000 realms, Phantom Realm, and Jilei Peak. Wang Xingxiao, Gu Hanshan, Song Xiai, and Jiang Shangyu. Any one of them was powerful enough to look down on the young generation of Jianghu State. Qin Weibai had always been very confident in Li Tianlan. She did not think that Li Tianlan would lose, but confidence was not blind worship, so she did not think that Li Tianlan would win easily. If Li Tianlan wanted to win the final maneuver, he almost had to rely on his own strength to defeat the strongest of the young generation. The best outcome was that he would be seriously injured. At that time, he naturally could not go to Snow Country. No matter what happened in Snow Country, he was powerless. Lin Fengting also understood what Qin Weibai meant. He was silent for a while, wanting to say something but stopping on second thought. Finally, he said, "Have you ever thought that you might have underestimated Tianlan?" Underestimated? Qin Weibai turned her head and opened a pair of red and swollen but still bright and dreamy beautiful eyes. "Do you know how strong he is now?" Lin Fengting asked calmly. Qin Weibai was silent. She did not ask about Li Tianlan's current martial arts, and Li Tianlan did not say it. This matter was very important, but it was not the most important thing at the moment. "What do you think, sir?" Qin Weibai asked seriously. Lin Fengting was silent for a moment. He remembered Li Tianlan's performance when he was entangled with Wang Tianzong. In the monstrous sword intent, Li Tianlan directly entered the state of meditation. Lin Fengting could vaguely feel Li Tianlan's progress afterward, but when it happened, he did not feel anything. Nothingness. Li Tianlan in meditation seemed to not exist at all, and his whole person seemed to completely dissipate between heaven and earth. At that time, Tianzong asked Tianlan a question. Lin Fengting said, he asked Tianlan when he recultivated the 4 realms of martial arts. He paused and shook his head in confusion. Li Tianlan did give him a very strange feeling now, but he could not tell it, even though he had seen a few videos of Li Tianlan's moves. Great breakthroughs and great achievements are based on recultivating the 4 realms of martial arts. Tianlan is now in the state after recultivating the 4 realms of martial arts. "Don't you know what this means?" Lin Fengting asked. Qin Weibai's eyes changed, and her eyes were full of vigor. After recultivating the 4 realms of martial arts, the word recultivation could be completely removed. After the 4 realms of martial arts, there was only the invincible realm. "Sir, do you mean that Tianlan is now in the invincible realm?" Qin Weibai's eyes were a little happy. The stronger her man was, the happier she would be. Yes and no. Lin Fengting shook his head. He is certainly not in the real invincible realm, but at least he is no longer in the thunder-shocking realm. Qin Weibai fell silent. Even so, it is unlikely that he can win this maneuver unscathed. Qin Weibai whispered. Lin Fengting's eyes were deep and meaningful. Qin Weibai wanted to face the tribulation for Li Tianlan. So she dragged the entire Samsara palace to destruction. But it was related to the future of the Lin clan, so Lin Fengting had to protect her. In this case, some words did not need to be too clear. Lin Fengting smiled and changed the topic. "What happened on Mount Dibbing was your doing, wasn't it?" He said it vaguely. But Qin Weibai knew what he was talking about. "Yes." Qin Weibai's tone was calm. "How do you know summer solstice?" Lin Fengting was a little curious. Summer solstice's strength was a secret of the Wang family of Beihai, and even some giants of Jianghu state were not very clear about it. When the 4 of them learned swordsmanship together, summer solstice's progress could even be said to be the fastest, but she never fought. The treason case on the border more than 20 years ago was the only time she fought. But that case itself had too many secrets, and Kunlun City could not publicize it, so few people knew the details of summer solstice. In any case, Qin Weibai should not know. "Why don't I know?" Qin Weibai asked. Lin Fengting fell silent. He was a little embarrassed. In fact, it did not matter why Qin Weibai knew summer solstice's strength. What mattered was whether the Wang family of Beihai knew that the sneak attack on summer solstice was actually the doing of the Samsara Palace. Lin Fengting did not expect this matter to be a secret. Because the Samsara Palace hardly concealed it. Summer solstice could be said to be Wang Tianzong's reverse scale. In her current state, if she forced a fight, it would not be good. Wang Tianzong was not the kind of person who would not fight back after suffering a loss. In the upcoming final battle in the Dark World, the Samsara Palace, which had little hope of survival, provoked Wang Tianzong, and the hope of survival was now almost infinitely close to 0. Tianzong will go crazy. You didn't do this secretly. Lin Fengting shook his head, and his tone was a little complicated. I just gave him a chance to go crazy. Qin Weibai stood up and said in a flat tone, at this point, it's time for the Samsara Palace to give up some less important things. I'm waiting for Wang Tianzong's revenge, and even prepared clues for him. Let's see if the intelligence system of the Wang family of Beihai is really so pervasive. Lin Fengting instinctively did not want to talk about this topic. Are you leaving now? Qin Weibai tidied up her messy long hair, shook her head, and said, I still have to see 2 people. Lin Fengting took a deep look at her, nodded, and said, take care. He passed by Qin Weibai and walked out. The scenery in Lin and was charming, especially the West Lake, which was the most memorable. With the establishment of the Supervisory Council, the West Lake scenic spots had recently been guarded by a lot of armed troops. Inevitably, the number of tourists had decreased a lot. The sparsely populated West Lake was a holy land for Lin Fengting, who was unrestrained in his bones. Qin Weibai seemed to have calmed down. She went back to the bedroom and changed her clothes. She was dressed simply in a white shirt and black straight pants. She washed her face in the bathroom. Qin Weibai, who had been empty and desperate and a little weak, suddenly became dreamy and cold again. She called Flaming Fire and asked them to prepare a car, book a plane ticket, and get ready to leave. Saint was still recovering in the small villa at the end of the villa area. Qin Weibai did not intend to see him again. From the very beginning, it was a deal between her and Saint. For her, the meeting in the villa a few days ago should be the last meeting in her life. Saint seemed to be aware of this, so he took off his cloak that day. She went downstairs and walked out of the villa. Before leaving Jianghu State, she still had to see 2 people. It didn't matter in which order, as long as she saw them. The lawn in front of the villa was green and soft. Qin Weibai stood on the grass and turned around gently. With her back to the West Lake, she stared at the villa that brought her too much happiness and peace of mind. The location of the villa was excellent, but because of the age, it was actually a little old. However, it seemed to be contaminated with too much of Li Tianlan's aura, so every brick and tile was impeccable. Impeccable, the most perfect. There was a kind of faint but full of joy, anger, sorrow, and joy, full of lingering love, full of deep love and no regrets. This atmosphere was neither heaven nor hell. It was the human world in the vast secular world. But it was no longer the human world that belonged to her. Why should she miss it? Qin Weibai pressed her red lips tightly. She looked at the villa in front of her again and simply turned around. A flash of red appeared in her line of sight. That red dress was like a swaying flame under the sun. The red was passionate, the red was charming, and the red was dazzling. So gorgeous. But so cold. The red dress, with the hem of the dress fluttering in the wind, walked lightly to Qin Weibai. Chapter 343. Qin Weibai looked at Red Dress who walked up to her. The red dress was bright and eye-catching, making people ignore the breeze, the sun, the lake, and the green trees. The red dress fluttered and became the most vivid color in front of Qin Weibai. Qin Weibai instinctively adjusted her body, took a step back, and made a subtle but clear defensive posture. Her expression was serious. But her eyes, which had just woken up, became dazed again, and there was no focus in them. It seemed to be the same morning. It seemed to be the same sunshine. It seemed to be the same breeze. It seemed to be the same red dress. How familiar this scene was. It was like a sharp knife, piercing directly into her broken heart without any leeway, making her numb and hollow soul experience the deep pain again. The story seemed to have just begun. But Qin Weibai felt that she was standing in the end. She was a little panicked. So she took another step back and looked around in a panic. The villa area was quiet under the sun. The breeze was extremely gentle, and the treetops were swaying in the wind. The sun shone on the West Lake, with charming waves. There was no sky close at hand, and it was impossible to see the whole city from above. There was no blood on the ground, and the grass was green and soft, peaceful. Qin Weibai took a few deep breaths and forced herself to calm down. I cried. I'm fine now, she said. Red Dress looked at Qin Weibai quietly. Her eyes were as clear as water, with a kind of innocence that had never been polluted by any filth. She was wearing a bright red tunic dress and a pair of pure white sneakers. Her fair and straight calves were exposed. Her hair fluttered in the breeze. She was pure and enchanting, like a piece of colorful crystal. She was crystal clear and beautiful, yet so gorgeous. Qin Weibai's eyes stayed on her shoes for a long time. Red Dress seemed to take a small step back in a hurry and whispered, "I'm not used to wearing high-heeled shoes." "That's good." Qin Weibai smiled. "Tianlan just left to find your brother-in-law. Did you come to Lin and by yourself?" "I came with my sister." Dongqing Rushi, dressed in red, said honestly. Lin and was not far from Huading. Since Zhou Yuanshan was in charge of the Jianghu provincial government, it was much more convenient for Dongqing Qiuqi and Zhou Yuanshan to get together. After Zhou Yuanshan got familiar with the environment in a few days, Dongqing Qiuqi naturally came to see her husband. It was just a 2 to 3 hour drive. Dongqing Rushi, who lived with her sister, naturally came to see her fiancé. "I'm also your sister." Qin Weibai smiled softly and meaningfully. Her red and swollen eyes were still resplendent, but her expression was extremely gentle. It was a very kind gaze, filled with intimacy, appreciation, and a trace of imperceptible but real guilt. Dongqing Rushi blushed, blinked her eyes, and subconsciously glanced at her wrist. Both of them wore the same exquisite watches on their wrists. She had nothing to do with Qin Weibai. But from Li Tianlan's point of view, Li Tianlan was their man, and they were naturally sisters. Dongqing Rushi gently bit her lower lip, and her bright little face was a little gloomy. No matter how pure her temperament was, she was still a woman. Sharing a man with another woman, and she had to call this woman sister. Dongqing Rushi couldn't describe the feeling in her heart, but she just felt a little wronged. "Do you feel very wronged?" Qin Weibai asked softly. "No." Dongqing Rushi shook her head subconsciously, but she was not good at hiding her emotions. She gently pursed her small mouth, and it seemed that she didn't mean what she said. "It's normal to feel wronged." Qin Weibai touched Dongqing Rushi's hair, and her voice became softer. She was 1.76 meters tall barefoot, and she was a little taller than Dongqing Rushi. With a pair of high heels, her movement was very natural. "Even if I were you, I would also feel wronged. At least for now, it seems that you are indeed more suitable for Tianlan than me. If I were you, maybe I would have already made a scene." Dongqing Rushi lowered her head and looked at her toes. She whispered, "I don't dare. If I make a scene, Tianlan will definitely not want me. If Tianlan doesn't want me, my family will not want me either." Her words were very soft and tender. Qin Weibai, who knew something about the past, felt sad in her heart. How could they bear to do that? Qin Weibai smiled and took Dongqing Rushi's hand. "You are the most suitable girl for Tianlan, no one else. Tianlan will definitely not abandon you." "Really?" Dongqing Rushi raised her head and looked at Qin Weibai with clear eyes. She was a little happy. "Of course it's true." Qin Weibai nodded. The kindness in her eyes was not hidden, but there was still a trace of pity and sadness. If she didn't exist. Who? Dongqing Rushi asked subconsciously. She asked it very naturally, but when she said the single syllable, there was a stiffness that she didn't even notice. The breeze was still soft. Dongqing Rushi, whose hand was held by Qin Weibai, gradually changed. The clarity in her eyes gradually changed, and a strange look became stronger and stronger. Qin Weibai let go of Dongqing Rushi's hand in silence. The kindness in her eyes gradually disappeared, and she became cold. "Of course it's another you. I don't think there's anything wrong with my existence." The clarity in Dongqing Rushi's eyes disappeared completely, and she became extremely cold and vigilant almost instantly. Qin Weibai looked indifferently at Dongqing Yueshan, who had quietly replaced Dongqing Rushi's personality. There was a trace of disgust in her eyes that she couldn't hide. It was disgust, not hatred. You should disappear. She said coldly, if you don't show up, the Dongqing clan will be much more at ease. Ridiculous. Dongqing Yueshan sneered. My existence is not a secret in the Dongqing clan. My sister, my parents, my grandfather, and my godfather all know about it. They all love me very much. What qualifications do you have to stand in the Dongqing clan's position to judge me? You are neither human nor ghost. Qin Weibai's voice was as cold as the chilly wind blowing out of the polar glacier, without any temperature. Her smile was as cold as a knife and sharp. You have the face to say that they love you very much? Don't you feel ashamed? Her words were extremely harsh. But Dongqing Yueshan wasn't angry. She just frowned and wondered, why should I feel ashamed? This rhetorical question was natural. Qin Weibai was stunned on the spot. She was silent for a long time, then sighed softly and said self-mockingly, you really have nothing to feel ashamed of now. Dongqing Yueshan became more and more inexplicable. She looked at Qin Weibai, with undisguised defensiveness in her eyes. Just like Qin Weibai didn't like her. She didn't like Qin Weibai either. This woman was recognized as a goddess in the dark world. She was superior, perfect, otherworldly, and extremely beautiful. But when Dongqing Rushi saw her for the first time in Heaven Capital, she didn't like her. She always felt that this woman was too demonic. Under the sacred, all was demonic aura. Dongqing Yueshan didn't want to admit that this dislike was fear, but she instinctively didn't want to see Qin Weibai. But what Qin Weibai said to Dongqing Rushi was too obvious. If she didn't show up, she really wasn't sure what Qin Weibai would say. So now it was not so much that Dongqing Yueshan took the initiative to show up, but that Qin Weibai took the initiative to lead her out. What do you want? Dongqing Yueshan asked cautiously. Do you remember our meeting in Heaven Capital? Qin Weibai said calmly, I asked you a question at that time. In the past 100 years in Jianghu state, which family is the saddest and most pitiful? Dongqing Yueshan stared at Qin Weibai and said nothing. Qin Weibai did ask this question. But Qin Weibai also gave the answer at that time. She didn't say the Li family, but the Dongqing clan. Dongqing Yueshan didn't agree with this view. Not the Li family. And not the Dongqing clan. She looked at Qin Weibai and said firmly, word by word. I really don't know where your confidence comes from. Qin Weibai sneered and said, if some people are trustworthy, how can we have all this today? From your point of view, if you trust the wrong person, you are doomed to a tragedy. I'm right. Dongqing Yueshan's tone was firm and stubborn. Qin Weibai took a deep look at her. You can believe in your own judgment, provided that you are mentally prepared to pay the price. Dongqing Yueshan's face changed, and she said nothing. Tell me, if you fall in love with a man you have to kill, what will happen? Qin Weibai suddenly asked. She asked suddenly. Dongqing Yueshan's face changed dramatically. I don't know what you are talking about. She forced herself to be calm. Qin Weibai looked at Dongqing Yueshan quietly, and a smile gradually appeared at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes were in a trance, and her thoughts completely drifted elsewhere. They are all pitiful people. She said softly, and her sharp eyes softened. Have you ever imagined yourself as a bird? A bird with wings that can fly freely, flying higher than an eagle. Qin Weibai asked softly. Dongqing Yueshan only thought that she was crazy. She shook her head and said, no. I have imagined it, but I can't. Qin Weibai said softly, but there is a woman who has always thought so. She used to be a genius of an era, but in the end, she cooperated with others and killed her beloved man. Do you want to know what happened to her in the end? What happened? Dongqing Yueshan asked subconsciously. She was crazy. Qin Weibai laughed and said, she was really crazy. Back then, she thought that she was a bird that could fly freely in front of me. So she laughed and jumped from the highest place in Huading. She fell to pieces and her family fell into dire straits because of that. The important members of her family were either sentenced to death or sent to prison. None of them had a good ending. Qin Weibai said softly, as if she remembered that summer again. That summer in Huading, that woman was also wearing a scarlet dress and a pair of red high heels. In the bright and illusory sunshine, she smiled foolishly and imagined that she had become a bird, opened the wings she thought she had, and jumped from the highest place in Huading. She was a crazy red dress. She was a bird with broken wings. Her figure passed through the white clouds and fell from the sky with the fierce wind, and finally dyed a large area of green grass red. After the sunshine in Huading that day, there was a heavy rain. The heavy rain passed through the quiet years in the depths of memory, gradually turning red and sticky, like the last messy loneliness of a bloody storm. All the grudges and grievances had their final ending in that rain of blood. Qin Weibai smiled, looked at the expressionless Dongqing Yueshan in front of her, and said softly, coincidentally, that completely crazy woman has a name similar to yours. Chapter 344. Li Honghe was making tea. The two villas under Qin Weibai's name were next to each other. Through the white railing, Qin Weibai clearly saw the old man making tea in the courtyard of another villa. The wind was gentle and the sun was shining. The old man's movements were unhurried and leisurely. Seeing Qin Weibai coming over, Li Honghe looked up with a smile and said, "Sit down. You're in a good mood." Qin Weibai sat down and said in a flat tone. She didn't call Senior Li, who seemed to be very respectful. In the absence of others, Qin Weibai didn't bother to disguise her emotions. "I'm old. I told you last time we met that I have nothing to think about in this life. My only obsession is to see Tianlan bring the Li family back to its original height." Li Honghe smiled and poured a cup of tea for Qin Weibai. Westlake Longjing was world famous, but the old man made black tea from Jiangnan. The tea was mellow and had a long aftertaste. He put the tea in front of Qin Weibai, narrowed his eyes, and continued, "But now it seems that you still don't believe me." "Should I believe you?" Qin Weibai asked. This was not the first time they met. More than 4 years ago, when Li Tianlan repracticed martial arts for the first time in the desert prison, Qin Weibai and Li Honghe met for the first time. Qin Weibai had never concealed her doubts about Li Honghe. But she got all of Li Honghe's trust. "Whether you believe it or not, I mean it." Li Honghe looked at Qin Weibai calmly. Qin Weibai looked down at the cup of black tea handed over by the old man. She gently touched the edge of the cup with her fingers. After a long time, she suddenly asked, "Is there enough manpower in the Li family?" "The Overwatch Council has enough manpower." Li Honghe said calmly, "It's not a powerful agency in the southeast. It doesn't make sense to put too many people here." Qin Weibai looked up at Li Honghe as if she wanted to see through his heart. On the surface, the Southeast Supervisory Council was indeed meaningless. Most of the southeast was the territory of the Wang family of Beihai. A few areas like Huading were also a mix of crooks and honest people. Those who dared to establish themselves there all had quite a strong background. The power and function of the special warfare system were originally very vague. The Supervisory Council had the function of supervision. But at present, unless an institution blatantly committed treason, the Supervisory Council had no business at all. But it was an organization that could be at the same level as the Special Warfare Department. Li Honghe's position was more meaningful to provide the Li family with a place to survive. The Li family, which had only a dozen people left, was all stuffed into the Overwatch Council. At least, it was equal to having a veritable official identity. It was also equal to Zhongzhou State's recognition of the Li family's status again after many years of treason. With this identity, no matter how much the Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun City hated the Li family, they could only hold it in. If they took the risk to take action, once clues were exposed and used by people with ulterior motives, it might form another case of treason, and the evidence would be more conclusive than the case of treason many years ago. Therefore, in a short time, in the absence of absolute certainty and entanglement of great interests, the Li family would be extremely safe in Lin and with the brand of the Overwatch Council. But it was only limited to safety. It was also very difficult to expand. And this was under the situation that the Li family got the survival soil after Sai City gave up a murderous weapon in 2 provinces in the northeast. Wu Jingmin was transferred from Jianghu. But all this was only on the surface. No matter how down and out the Li family was, Li Honghe was still there. Although Wu Jingmin was transferred, he went further into the decision-making committee and became the lowest-ranking deputy prime minister in the cabinet. Zhang Qi, the minister of special warfare in the southeast, also hid very well. This was only known by Qin Weibai. God knew how many cards Li Honghe had hidden in his hands. This unfathomable old man, guarding in the southeast, held an agency that seemed to have no real power, but had too many chess pieces that could be used in the dark. He said he had no thoughts. Who dared to believe it? At least Qin Weibai did not dare to believe it. Everything in the future depends on Tianlan. Li Honghe whispered, the road has been paved. Although this starting point is not perfect, it is much better than expected. At least, as long as I am alive, he will not have any worries. But the situation is not good. Qin Weibai's tone was indifferent. In all fairness, today's Li family was already good. At least it had become Li Tianlan's help. Jianghu, which was likely to become the foundation of the Li family in the future, and Zhongzhou State's deputy prime minister, who was old but strong, was not weak. In any group, it would be an important or even a core component. But the key was that the Li family was not in any group, and the Li family's opponent was not an individual, but a group. It was a behemoth like the Southeast Group and the Special Warfare Group. In comparison, the help around Li Tianlan suddenly seemed extremely loose. One was the declining Li family, and the other was Sai City, which had just risen for a few decades but lost its murderous weapon. As for the giant group, Li Tianlan didn't get the support of the giant group so much as the support of the 3 pillars of rich and powerful families. Dongqing City, the Bai family, and the Zhou family. The combined forces were indeed powerful, but it was still a different concept from the support of the giant group. It's really not good. Li Honghe nodded. So if you have extra men, you don't have to monitor me. It's better to put them in more useful places. Qin Weibai's slender and delicate fingers gently tapped on the edge of the cup. The sound of fingernails gently touching the teacup was extremely empty, calm, but unusually distant. Qin Weibai's voice sounded in the tapping. How much can you grasp about the purgatory of Heaven Capital? The Li family had been away from the dark world for many years. But this problem could still become the most sensitive one in the dark world. Li Honghe. Grasping the purgatory of Heaven Capital. Li Honghe did not seem surprised by this question. He was silent for a while, and then said indifferently, which aspect do you mean? There were only 2 main reasons why the purgatory of Heaven Capital could become the top superpower in the dark world in just 3 years, and its momentum surpassed that of the Samsara Palace. First, it was a decisive expert who could almost override the entire dark world. It was deity who had fought with Wang Tianzong more than once without suffering much loss. Second, it was the pillar experts and elite troops of the purgatory of Heaven Capital. Senluo, life prolonging, immortality. When the 3 palaces of the purgatory of Heaven Capital were famous in the dark world, people found that the experts of the purgatory of Heaven Capital were far more than Daybreak, Dawn, and Phoenix. There were also a large number of silent experts and real battle-hardened elites. Top experts, steady pillars, and battle-hardened elites formed the most stable structure of the purgatory of Heaven Capital. They had no shortcomings because they were backed by East Island, so they could become a real superpower in the shortest time. All aspects. Qin Weibai said indifferently. This time, Li Honghe was silent for a longer time, and then he said slowly, I don't know. Qin Weibai could hear that it was the truth. But because it was the truth, she felt a little sharp and angry. You don't know? She raised her eyebrows. Don't worry. Li Honghe smiled. Everyone has witnessed Tianlan's performance over the years. The Li family all approves of him. But not everyone approves of him. Qin Weibai's tone was cold. It's enough that most people approve of him. Li Honghe's tone was indifferent. As long as he's strong enough, he can get everything. I've prepared everything that needs to be prepared. You've prepared what I'm not prepared for. He looked at Qin Weibai with undisguised appreciation in his eyes. I didn't expect that the silence of the master of Samsara Palace would have such a big impact in the final battle of Heaven Capital 3 years ago. After the border war, Tiannan appeared, and the purgatory of Heaven Capital entered Tiannan. Is it your doing? Is this our tacit understanding? I'm just doing what I should do. Qin Weibai's voice was indifferent. Tianlan will become stronger, the strongest. I've never doubted that. But he needs time to grow. Li Honghe said in a low voice. His tone was very heavy. Because everyone knew what Li Tianlan would be like when he grew up. He knew. The Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun City would also know. The Li family just wanted a soil for survival, and it directly shook the situation in the northeast and southeast of Jianghu state. Even with the support of the giant group, it still paid a high price. This was just a soil for survival. So what kind of price did the Li family have to pay to make Li Tianlan grow up? I'll give him time. Qin Weibai said softly, but after he gets time, what else will he get? The sound of fingers tapping on the edge of the cup was still ringing. Calm and collected. The subtle sound seemed to synchronize with the breeze, becoming softer and more soothing. A butterfly flew over the marble coffee table. The butterfly's wings fluttered and finally landed beside the teapot. He can get everything as long as he has time. Li Honghe took a deep breath and said in a low voice. Everything? Qin Weibai laughed. I can't believe you. She said, and even if he gets it, there are two kinds. One is temporary possession, and the other is real possession. Tianlan can get everything, but your existence may take everything away. I have a hunch that you may live longer than everyone thinks. Wang Tianzong slashed you with his sword and made you fall into the invincible realm. It may be for a reason. Seniorly, you just said that most people in the Li family will recognize Tianlan. Her voice paused. The butterfly in front of the table flew up, but it danced in the sight of the two. Qin Weibai's voice was ethereal, vaguely seeming to synchronize with heaven and earth. It sounded with the vibration of the butterfly's wings, occupying all of people's consciousness. So, do you recognize Tianlan? The butterfly danced softly. The winds seemed to be getting stronger. The sky was rising, and the temperature was rising. The sunlight gradually faded, and the air became dark. The coffee table in front of the two remained unchanged, but the grass around them began to wriggle wildly. The grass was rising wildly and completely out of control. Wildflowers appeared in the grass and bloomed rapidly. One by one, the trees grew bigger and taller in the grass at a speed visible to the naked eye. The air became sultry and thick. The villa disappeared. A dense primitive forest suddenly appeared around the two of them. The sunlight disappeared completely. In the darkness, the table and chairs in front of the two seemed to disappear, and the marble table turned into a stone tablet. Two bright red characters were carved on the stone tablet. Jianghu State. The butterfly was dancing. The wind was getting stronger. The thick and sultry air was flowing in the wind. The sultry air gradually became cool, and then it turned into bitter cold. It began to snow high up in the sky. The snow covered the treetops and fell to the ground. Of course, I recognized Tianlan. Li Honghe's voice became a little slow, but it was still clear. Really? Qin Weibai's voice was like the sound of nature, filling every corner of the forest, grand and clear, like the voice of a fairy. Yes. Li Honghe's voice became more and more slow. He didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with the forest that shouldn't have appeared. It was still snowing in the sky. The snow was getting heavier and heavier, and the snow kept rising, burying the boundary monument of Jianghu State for a moment. Countless trees gathered together, rising and rising again. The landscape was undergoing earth-shaking changes. The snowflakes were getting bigger and bigger. Qin Weibai also didn't think there was anything wrong with the snow that shouldn't have appeared. Her voice still rang through the whole world unhurriedly. If Li Guangde didn't die, between him and Tianlan, what would you choose? Li Honghe's voice sounded a little dull, but it was extremely true and frank. I don't know. What about you? He suddenly countered with a question. The snowflakes all over the sky fell down like crazy. Countless trees were still rising, still gathering. The forest had disappeared. So the rising and gathering trees turned into mountains. The mountain was covered with snow, covering the entire mountain and plains. Of course I choose Tianlan. Qin Weibai's voice was gentle and sentimental, almost like a whisper. Really? Li Honghe's dull voice gradually became smooth. Why are you so good to him? Or... He looked at Qin Weibai. Who the hell are you? I am, boom. Qin Weibai seemed to have said the answer, but Li Honghe couldn't hear it clearly. The whole world completely collapsed in an instant. The falling snow, the collapsed snow-capped mountains, and the messy sky completely disappeared in an instant. Li Honghe gave a muffled groan. The world returned to its original state. There was still a tea table in front of them. It was still windy and sunny, and the fragrance of tea was spreading. The butterfly was still there. But it became two. One stopped in front of Qin Weibai. The other fell on Li Honghe's hand. Li Honghe looked at Qin Weibai. His eyes were a little strange. The expression on Qin Weibai's perfect face changed, and she stared at the butterfly in Li Honghe's hand. You want to hypnotize me? Qin Weibai's voice was extremely cold. You want to hypnotize me? Li Honghe said softly. Qin Weibai was silent. In the spiritual field, both of them were masters. She understood what was going on in an instant. At the beginning, the primeval forest and the boundary marker of Jianghu state were all normal. Because that was the world deep in Li Honghe's heart. It was the border. But there shouldn't be snow at the border. The moment the snow appeared was the beginning of Li Honghe's counterattack. The vast snow and the snow-capped mountains were Qin Weibai's inner world. The only world. Qin Weibai recognized Li Honghe's inner world. That was the real border of Jianghu state. Li Honghe also recognized Qin Weibai's inner world. That was the real Kunlun of Jianghu state. The snow and the mountain could almost be regarded as the hub of the special warfare system of Jianghu state. That was the Qingyun snow peak of Kunlun. Under the Qingyun snow peak. It was Kunlun city of Jianghu state. The two worlds changed so naturally that Qin Weibai, who wanted to hypnotize Li Honghe, didn't notice it. Instead of getting the truth she wanted, she almost fell into Li Honghe's trap. The confrontation in the spiritual field was even more thrilling than the fight between martial arts, because it was almost an interrogation of the soul. Li Honghe fell from the invincible realm, and his willpower was unstable. Qin Weibai was also in a trance in the face of the parting that would never be together again. Qin Weibai took a deep breath and calmed down again. She might have said something just now, but she believed that Li Honghe couldn't hear it. I didn't expect you to have such a strong sense of self-protection. Li Honghe smiled and said, similarly, I didn't expect you to know this method of hypnosis. He looked at Qin Weibai and said, the field of hypnosis is broad and profound. Different techniques have different effects. This technique is improved by me, and it can even be said to be my own creation. Li Honghe touched the butterfly on his hand and said, I can be sure that there is only one person who knows this technique except me, but that person is not you. His smile was a little complicated and confused. So can you tell me who taught you this technique? Qin Weibai glanced at Li Honghe coldly and said nothing. Hey! Sister, Grandpa Li, are you drinking tea here? It's windy. A voice suddenly sounded. Lin Yuxian appeared in front of the two with a bright smile. What are you talking about? Nothing. Li Honghe smiled and said, watching the butterfly. He raised his hand. The butterfly flew up and flew past Lin Youxian's eyes. What butterfly? Where is it? Lin Youxian looked confused. Let's go. Qin Weibai suddenly stood up. She took a deep look at Li Honghe and said calmly, I don't know if I should believe you or not. My distrust of you all comes from that cemetery. I know what you have done. Lin Youxian was there, so what she said was not completely clear. Li Honghe condensed the death energy formed by nearly 1,000 dead people of the Li family into a huge destiny, which almost doomed Li Tianlan's destiny of death. How could Qin Weibai believe Li Honghe? A light flashed in Li Honghe's eyes, and he smiled bitterly. I understand. But I have no choice. If I had a choice, I wouldn't do that. He sighed softly, looked at Qin Weibai, and said softly but sincerely, I also know what you and Wu Wei have done. Thank you. I'm leaving. Qin Weibai shook her head. Li Honghe stood up behind her and bowed deeply to the young woman who was nominally his granddaughter-in-law. Thank you. Lin Youxian was startled. Qin Weibai did not look back. Li Honghe looked at her back with a calm expression. He knew what Qin Weibai had done, so he naturally knew what kind of consequences she had to bear. This woman, who had only a vast expanse of snow in her heart, was going to face the tribulation for Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan thought that it was just a farewell. But Li Honghe knew it clearly. There would be no future for her to leave this time. No matter what happened in the future, her perfect figure would no longer be seen in the final sky of Li Tianlan and the Li family. Qin Weibai gently turned around and walked out of the villa. The brilliance of the whole early summer seemed to wither like winter as she turned around. Chapter 345. It was Zhou Yuanshan who asked Li Tianlan to meet, but the meeting place was the first building of the Jianghu Council compound. This was Wu Jingmin's residence. Wu Jingmin's entry into the cabinet was a foregone conclusion. The Ministry of Organizing Work of Zhongzhou State had issued a document a few days ago, and the whole of Jianghu was shaken violently. Recently, the council compound of Jianghu was extremely lively. Various departments at the provincial level and the prefecture level leaders below them came in an endless stream. Wu Jingmin had been running Jianghu for more than 20 years, and he had been the top leader for nearly 20 years. His deep foundation was completely revealed when he was about to leave office. Every car going in and out of the council compound was enough to show the old man's almost superb control of Jianghu. The southeast of Zhongzhou State was very lively this year. The most lively place was Jianghu. Lively, but not chaotic. Wu Jingmin's departure from Jianghu would naturally have a huge impact, but his departure was not unacceptable. He entered the decision-making committee and was the real deputy prime minister of Zhongzhou State, not a nominal title. In the cabinet, he was in charge of business, finance, market economy, quality inspection, customs, tourism, and other work of Zhongzhou State. Although he ranked last, the real power in his hands was not fake. This was undoubtedly the result of the secret support of the giant group and Li Honghe. At the same time, it was announced to the whole of Jianghu that Wu Jingmin did not lose power after leaving Jianghu. Such a move would not completely stabilize people's hearts, but at least it would not make the whole officialdom of Jianghu panic. This was the first step to stabilize Jianghu, and it was a crucial step. Only when Wu Jingmin was still in power could all the subsequent actions of the Li family be meaningful. It was just after 9:00 in the morning when Li Tianlan arrived at the council compound on Fu Road, Lin, and Province. Wu Jingmin's secretary stood at the door to greet him. The secretary had the same surname as Li Tianlan, and his first name was Tong. He was ordinary, introverted, and reserved. He reached out to stop Li Tianlan's car, opened the door of the passenger seat, and sat down. He said with a smile, "Your Highness, I'm Li Tong. The secretary and the governor are walking in the yard, and they asked me to pick you up." Li Tianlan nodded with a smile, his eyes peaceful. As the secretary of the top leader of Jianghu, Li Tong's information was naturally among them. However, compared with the 13 directors of Jianghu, Li Tong's information was a lot more vague. The Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun City joined hands to attack Li Honghe. After that, a series of rapid and hasty changes occurred. No one else was prepared, not even the Li family itself. It was completely unrealistic for Li Tianlan to integrate into the high-level circle of Jianghu in just a few days. Today, he bit the bullet and came here, which seemed to be pushing a duck to the perch. Under the circumstances that he had not even met Wu Jingmin, it was naturally difficult for him to understand what kind of person Li Tong was. The black Audi slowly drove to the gate of the councillor's compound. At the same time, an Audi with a Yong City license plate slowly drove out. The two cars brushed past each other. Li Tianlan glanced at it. It was the number 1 bus from Yong City. It's Secretary Ji's car. Li Tong reminded softly. He looked out the window at the departing Audi with undisguised envy in his eyes. Secretary Ji Ankang of Yong City. Li Tianlan said with a smile. In the information he studied, the Deputy Secretary of Jianghu, Ji Ankang of Yong City, could be said to be the most important, so he could understand the envy in Li Tong's eyes. Because Ji Ankang could be regarded as Li Tong's predecessor and the first secretary of Wu Jingmin, he could be said to be the most trusted confidant. Wu Jingmin strongly recommended Ji Ankang to the high-level leaders to be the top leader of Yong City. At the same time, in order to check and balance Wang Jingxin of Lin'an, he pushed him to the position of deputy secretary. In today's Jianghu, Ji Ankang seemed to be a vassal, but in fact, he was the real third leader of the whole Jianghu. The information given by Qin Weibai and Li Honghe clearly pointed out that when Wu Jingmin left Jianghu, as long as Ji Ankang was kept, Zhou Yuanshan was almost invincible in the competition with Wang Jingxin. Li Tianlan drove thoughtfully. The car passed by the first building of the director's compound and came to the chessboard mountain in the director's compound. The trees on the chessboard mountain were green, but they did not give people a sense of lush vitality. Instead, they looked a little desolate in the green. There was a chessboard temple on the chessboard. Li Tianlan drove west along the mountain road and finally saw 2 men standing side by side in front of an old mountain wall. Wu Jingmin, whose hair was a little gray and had not had time to dye it black, was saying something. Zhou Yuanshan, the new governor who came to Jianghu from Zhongyuan, stood in front of Wu Jingmin, high-spirited and in high spirits. The mountain wall behind them was engraved with a whole volume of Amitabha Sutra, and the handwriting was ancient and clear. Li Tianlan looked at this picture quietly. Even though he was a very slow guy in all aspects, when he looked at the 2 men in his sight at this time, he could clearly feel the extremely heavy and solemn atmosphere full of power. He took a deep breath, opened the door, got out of the car, and walked over. Zhou Yuanshan saw Li Tianlan and waved his hand with a smile. This was the second time they met. But different from the approachable brother-in-law and the director's compound of Huading for the first time, Zhou Yuanshan now was steady and strong, and his every move was dignified. The only thing that remained unchanged was that his eyes were still kind when looking at Li Tianlan. He shook hands with Li Tianlan, and then introduced with a chuckle, "Tianlan, this is Secretary Wu." Li Tianlan did not reach out to Wu Jingmin. He came to him, bent down very seriously, and bowed to call him Grandpa Wu. Wu Jingmin was an old friend of Li Honghe. In any case, he deserved to be called Grandpa Wu. This was the talent that Li Honghe valued the most in those days, and his performance did not let anyone down. In the more than 20 years after the collapse of the Li family, facing the covetous eyes of the Wang family of Beihai and the open and covert attacks of other groups, he always stayed in Jianghu and guarded the last and most important foundation for the Li family. Not only did he stand firm, but he was even able to promote his first secretary to the position of the third leader. Every storm in Jianghu over the past 20 years could fully show Wu Jingmin's unfathomable political wisdom. If the Li family was still in its peak state, with Wu Jingmin's ability, how could he stay in Jianghu? It was even possible for him to become the cabinet. Wisdom, means, courage, and loyalty. Wu Jingmin could hardly find any flaws. This was a real strong man. He waited for the current situation with more than 20 years of silence and persistence, and finally won everyone's respect. Such silence was even more powerful than the desperate roars of too many people. Why are you so polite? Wu Jingmin smiled and helped Li Tianlan. His eyes were a little emotional. Looking at Li Tianlan's young face, he whispered, today's situation is not easy, and it will depend on you in the future. Don't worry, Grandpa Wu. Li Tianlan's voice was very light, but there was no guilt in it, only firmness. In this situation, Jianghu can only be temporarily handed over to Yuanshan. Wu Jingmin sighed and said, today I called you here for no other reason. I just want to express an attitude to the outside world. Even if I leave Jianghu, the Li family has a successor, and there is a good enough team for the giant group to build their next generation with you as the core. Only in this way can these people in Jianghu continue to maintain confidence and hope. If you have nothing to do in the afternoon, you and Yuanshan can accompany me for a walk. I guess I have to see a lot of people. Okay. Li Tianlan nodded, as calm as water. Ankang has just been here. He has made it clear that he will support Yuanshan's work. If I leave Jianghu, as long as Ankang is still there won't be a big problem within 3 years. Tianlan, time is very tight. The next 3 years are very important for you, for me, for Yuanshan, and for the entire Li family. And all of this depends on your performance in the next 3 years. Wu Jingmin looked at Li Tianlan with gentle eyes. Are you confident? Li Tianlan nodded in silence. He understood what Wu Jingmin meant. 3 years later, there would be a major change of government in Jianghu state once in a decade. At that time, if there was no accident, Wu Jingmin would definitely retire. After all, he was too old. Once Wu Jingmin retired, the situation in Jianghu would be unpredictable. At that time, whether Governor Zhou Yuanshan of Jianghu could take the position or not would be the key. If Zhou Yuanshan could not stay in Jianghu, the Li family was bound to be in turmoil again. Even if Zhou Yuanshan could get a position not inferior to that in Jianghu, the Wang family of Beihai that regained control of Jianghu would not let the Li family have a good life. If Zhou Yuanshan was forced to leave, it would even affect the layout of the giant group. This was a real move in one hair and the whole body would be affected. It was difficult for the Li family to make any real big moves in Jianghu within 3 years. Therefore, everything was on Li Tianlan. 3 years later, it was the time to really test the Li family's survival. What Li Tianlan could do could even directly determine the final result of the Li family. And what he had to do was not only to ensure that his martial arts advanced by leaps and bounds, but also to make his power expand rapidly. At least, he had to ensure that Zhou Yuanshan could take the position in Jianghu. This was the bottom line and the biggest goal. Don't worry, Grandpa Wu. Li Tianlan took a deep breath. His tone was not excited. Next, everything depends on me. Wu Jingmin nodded and said meaningfully, when a pawn crosses the river, there is no way back. It can only move forward. Everyone is a pawn. Zhou Yuanshan whispered. The general trend was like a chessboard. Every time there was a turbulence on the chessboard, there were dense black and white interlacing, just like Go. But when it came to the Li family, the general trend of the Li family was also a chessboard. But because they had too few pawns, each pawn must have a more distinct role. It was like chess. Wu Jingmin crossed the river from Jianghu to Yuzhou. Zhou Yuanshan crossed the river from Zhongyuan to Jianghu. Li Tianlan also crossed the river from Jianghu. They were all pawns crossing the river. There was no retreat. On the chessboard mountain. In front of the chessboard temple. The three of them stood quietly, like 3 pawns on the chessboard who crossed the river first. Chapter 346. In the afternoon and night, Wu Jingmin took Li Tianlan to meet a lot of people. Jianghu was very big, but in the past many years, the power structure was extremely simple, especially in the years when the Li family was destroyed. No matter how Wu Jingmin insisted, at least in the overall situation, he was the backbone of the Southeast group. After the end of the Yuzhou conference, Wu Jingmin, who had entered the cabinet, officially left the Southeast group and became Li Honghe's subordinate again. Naturally, he was unwilling to let go of the team he had cultivated in Jianghu for many years. He must do his best to leave these team members to the Li family. Wu Jingmin was upright and had sharp eyes. In more than 20 years, the team he had built in Jianghu was absolutely full of talents. In his own words, few people would care about an old guy like him who was too old to be active for a long time. But these people who had been promoted by him over the years were the real wealth. Because of this, today's meeting happened. Wu Jingmin, who was deeply rooted in Jianghu, Zhou Yuanshan, who was the first among the young generation of the giant group to reach a high position, and Li Tianlan, the heir of the Li family. The three of them stood together. The relationship between them was subtle and meaningful. The powerful figures of Jianghu who saw the three of them also had mixed feelings. Most of the day had passed. Li Tianlan didn't know how many people he had met, but he clearly remembered their attitudes. Among the 13 directors of Jianghu, except for Zhou Yuanshan himself, Wang Jingxin, and Su Xinghe who had not yet arrived in Jianghu, 6 directors clearly expressed their support for Zhou Yuanshan, and 2 expressed a certain degree of support. In addition, the attitude of the main people in charge of the cities under Jianghu was also relatively optimistic. It might take time to test the specific situation, but at least for now, no one clearly opposed Zhou Yuanshan taking over the team left by Wu Jingmin. Today's trip was already worthwhile for him to get this result. When Wu Jingmin left and Su Xinghe took office, the real struggle between the dragon and the tiger had just begun. Li Tianlan had dinner in the number 2 building of the director's compound, and then drove back to the villa area by West Lake. The lights were still on in Qin Weibai's 2 villas, but Flaming Fire and Qin Weibai had left. In the afternoon, when Wu Jingmin took him to visit a senior deputy governor of Jianghu, Qin Weibai sent him a text message. It was a simple message with only 3 words. "I'm leaving." Li Tianlan didn't reply at that time. At this time, he took out his mobile phone and glanced at it again. He suddenly felt a burst of melancholy. Li Honghe was drinking tea in the living room. Lin Fengting, who had been elusive in recent days, sat in front of Li Honghe and talked about some interesting things inside the Lin clan with a smile. Li Tianlan's heart was empty, with some disappointment that he himself was not aware of. "You're back." Li Honghe glanced at him with gentle eyes. "How are you today?" "It's all right." Li Tianlan sat on the sofa and poured himself a cup of tea. After Elder Wu leaves, the situation in Jianghu will not change much. It is unlikely to get better, but it will not get worse either. It will be a fierce battle. The real winner will be outside of Jianghu in 3 years. Lin Fengting smiled and pointed out the current situation with one prick. He didn't care about the affairs of the world, but it didn't mean that he was a fool. Since he had decided to help the Li family, he must pay attention to the current situation of Zhongzhou state. Lin Fengting could see the current situation clearly. In the general election 3 years later, how strong the Li family can be will directly determine the situation in Jianghu. At present, it is the bottom line to let Zhou Yuanshan take advantage of the situation and serve as the top leader of Jianghu in 3 years. If he can't achieve this goal, the Li family will be in danger. If he is forced to leave Jianghu, after Wu Jingmin retires, all the forces he has cultivated over the years will undoubtedly fall to the Wang family of Beihai. At that time, the Li family will have nothing, and Zhou Yuanshan, who has bet on his political future, will completely lose the qualification to compete with Wang Jingxin. The giant group will also rebound because of Zhou Yuanshan's failure. The 3 pillars of the wealthy will be forced by the internal pressure of the group, and their support for the Li family will be greatly reduced. At that time, Lin Fengting didn't go on, but glanced at Li Honghe intentionally or unintentionally. Li Honghe drank tea with a calm expression. 3 years later, there would be a general election. Wu Jingmin would retire, and Li Honghe's health might not be able to support it. If Zhou Yuanshan was defeated in Maicheng, the Li family would really be at the end of its road at that time. On the contrary, if Zhou Yuanshan took advantage of the situation and absorbed the team left by Wu Jingmin, No matter how bad the Li family was, with Xianxia as the foundation, it would at least have a chance to breathe. The giant group would definitely support Zhou Yuanshan. And the southeast group would definitely oppose it. It was not difficult to guess the position of Kunlun City. The loose giant group might not be able to withstand the cooperation of the southeast group and the special warfare group at that time. As for the academics, there were more important goals 3 years later, so it was bound to not give them too much support. Therefore, how far Li Tianlan could develop in these 3 years and how much support he could give Zhou Yuanshan became the key. I've met Yuanshan. With him and Jingmin, Jianghu is not a big problem. At present, this matter is temporarily over. When will you leave? Li Honghe looked at Li Tianlan and asked. Now, Li Tianlan said. The storm in Lin and had settled down, and there would not be too many ups and downs in 2 or 3 years. It was meaningless for him to stay here. Okay. Li Honghe nodded, glanced at the door of the villa out of the corner of his eye, and showed a smile. A light figure walked into the hall, wearing a red dress. She looked as charming as fire, but her temperament was as clear as water. She blinked at Li Tianlan and said in a clear voice, "You're back." Dongqing Rushi. Li Tianlan was a little stunned and nodded subconsciously. Why are you here? I came with my sister, Dongqing Rushi said softly. Dongqing Rushi said softly. She sat down beside Li Tianlan obediently and reached out to hold one of his hands. Li Honghe looked at this scene with warm eyes and a hearty smile. Fengting, don't you think these 2 children are a good match? When the final maneuver is over, I'll go to Zhongyuan in person to set their wedding date as soon as possible. Li Tianlan frowned. Li Honghe didn't seem to notice this. He looked at Dongqing Rushi with a smile and said, "Girl, what do you think of your engagement with Tianlan?" No. Dongqing Rushi shook her head and glanced at Li Tianlan. I'll listen to Tianlan. Li Honghe laughed and didn't hide his joy. There's no hurry about the wedding date. Let's talk about it in a few years. Li Tianlan said in a calm tone. No matter how busy you are, can you be so busy that you don't even have time to get married? There was a sharp flash in Li Honghe's eyes, and he was a little unhappy. Let's wait and see. Li Tianlan's tone was brief, suppressing the emotions in his heart. Dongqing Rushi looked at Li Tianlan in a daze. After a long time, she silently lowered her head, but did not let go of Li Tianlan's hand. Go pack up first, and we'll go to Huading later. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and squeezed Dongqing Rushi's slightly cold palm. Dongqing Rushi nodded, stood up, and went out. Packing up was an excuse in itself. Neither she nor Li Tianlan had anything to pack. Dongqing Rushi walked out of the villa and sat at the marble table in the yard, holding her cheeks in her hands, in a daze. In the villa, Li Honghe looked at Li Tianlan with a gloomy face. Li Tianlan drank his tea calmly. The engagement was set many years ago. It's not negotiable. After a long time, Li Honghe seemed to calm down and said word by word. I don't disagree. Li Tianlan said calmly, I'm just waiting. Waiting for what? Li Honghe's tone was a little cold. Waiting for me to die? Li Tianlan frowned and seemed to be a little annoyed. He lit a cigarette and took a big drag. Because of Qin Weibai? Li Honghe eased his tone and asked. Yes. Li Tianlan spoke bluntly. Do you know her? Or, do you know who she is? Li Honghe asked in a deep voice. I don't deny that she has helped you a lot at this stage, but can you be sure that her help is a good thing for you in the end? Li Tianlan raised his head. His eyes were bright and sharp, like the bright sword light after it was unsheathed. You don't believe her? Li Tianlan asked. I do. Li Honghe said calmly, but I can't find the basis for trust. You, me, the Wang family of Beihai, and the whole dark world, no one knows Samsara Palace, and no one knows Qin Weibai. When Qin Weibai first appeared in Huading, the 6 investigated her through their own intelligence channels. They only knew that she came from a small mountain village in the southwest. But after all these years, the six tried their best. They couldn't even find any clue about her parents, not to mention that small mountain village. There was no clue at all. Do you understand? She looked at her grandson's raised eyebrows and sighed softly. I can trust Qin Weibai, but I'd rather cooperate with the Dongqing clan. After all, they know everything. And when it comes to Zhongzhou State, not to mention that Samsara Palace is not in Zhongzhou State, even if they are here, they can't help you as much as the Dongqing clan. Marrying Rushi is the best for you and the Li family. Not the best for me. Li Tianlan looked at Li Honghe with burning eyes. I really don't know her past, but I believe in her feelings for me. For me, this is the basis of all trust. Feelings? Li Honghe sneered. Do you know where these feelings come from? Li Tianlan had been stunned and couldn't say a word. What's Qin Weibai's identity? What's your identity? Now you do have feelings, but where did they come from? Is this kind of inexplicable feelings the basis of trust? Why is she so good to you? Do you understand? Li Honghe asked. He took a deep look at his grandson, whose face was changing, and said calmly, behind the inexplicable deep feelings, there must be a debt. This kind of debt may be in the past, or it may be in the future. She may know that she is destined to owe you something in the future, so she makes it up to you now. I believe in such feelings. But I don't. As he spoke, the muscles at the corner of his mouth twitched, and a touch of pain and anger flashed in his eyes. Lin Fengting's mouth also twitched. I'm going to Huading. Li Tianlan stood up and walked out of the living room without looking back. Obviously, he didn't intend to say anything more on this issue. Li Honghe stood up abruptly, as if he wanted Li Tianlan to stop. Lin Fengting waved his hand with a bitter smile, interrupted Li Honghe's anger, and let Li Tianlan leave. Senior Li, I know what you are worried about. Lin Fengting said helplessly, but what you are worried about is unlikely. Qin Weibai does owe Tianlan, but now she is making up for it, not harming him. Not now. Li Honghe sat down. But in the final battle of Snow Country, if she doesn't die for Tianlan, what will happen in the future? Lin Fengting's eyes were complicated. He really knew what Li Honghe was worried about. But he also knew Qin Weibai. He really knew her. When in Australia, he agreed to lend the sword to Qin Weibai on the condition that he met the master of Samsara Palace. What everyone didn't know was that he did meet the master of Samsara Palace in Lin, and a few days ago. After meeting the master of Samsara Palace, he knew the origin of Samsara Palace, Qin Weibai, her debt, and the cause and effect that Lin Su said that day. Senior Li, after the final battle of Snow Country, Samsara Palace is destined to be destroyed. Lin Fengting said softly. But Samsara Palace and Qin Weibai are two different things. I can't see through her fate. Li Honghe said in a deep voice, she has the appearance of chaos. If she doesn't die, in the future. Chapter 347. When he left Lin'an, in addition to Dongqing Rushi, who went back with him, Li Tianlan also had a very famous driver. Lin Fengting stayed in Lin'an, but he sent his son Lin Yuxian to Huading. Li Tianlan and Dongqing Rushi sat in the back row. Lin Yuxian drove the car with a smile on his face, carefree and in a good mood. Did Yuxian go to Huading to see the final maneuver? Li Tianlan took out a cigarette and handed it over, asking casually. In the end, he didn't let the heir of the Lin clan call him brother-in-law, and Lin Yuxian didn't let Li Tianlan call him brother Lin. They called each other by name. Although they were not very familiar with each other, now they were on the same side, so their relationship was relatively harmonious. Yes. Lin Yuxian took the cigarette and subconsciously glanced at Dongqing Rushi in the rearview mirror, only to find that the genius of the Dongqing clan didn't feel disgusted. Instead, she took out a lighter to help Li Tianlan light the cigarette. He smiled and said, the final maneuver of the two academies of Zhongzhou State is quite important every time, and this one is even more so. With you, Xingxiao, Gu Hanshan, and Jiang Shangyu, this maneuver can be said to be the most valuable one. If I don't watch such a big show, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Not only me, but the people of the superpowers in the dark world will certainly collect relevant information even if they don't come. Now the Sky Academy is the focus of attention. Li Tianlan suddenly remembered the chat with Qin Weibai a few days ago. It was a chat about the Chosen One. Qin Weibai said that in this era, if someone could face Lin Fengting, deity, and the master of Samsara Palace with murderous weapons and not hurt his foundation, he would be the chosen one of this era. But this era was about to pass. Next was the era of young people. Wang Xingxiao, Gu Hanshan, and Jiang Shangyu would all be the top combat forces of Zhongzhou state in the future. If his foundation was not hurt in the face of their siege, would he really deserve the title of the chosen one of Zhongzhou state? Li Tianlan didn't consider whether he could do it or not. He was already considering what risks and benefits it would bring to him. In the final maneuver, if he really defeated everyone in this way, then no one would doubt his potential and future. But the Wang family of Beihai and Kunlun cities' desire to kill him would be so strong that it couldn't be any stronger. Li Tianlan was very clear about this. He was thinking about how many people would protect him at all costs. As long as he survived, the enormous prestige he had obtained after becoming the #1 expert of the younger generation would become tangible benefits. His future development in the Southern Heaven region would also be smooth. The final maneuver, Li Tianlan murmured to himself. After the Yuzhou conference, the final maneuver would undoubtedly become a watershed for the Li family. In the long run, it was even more crucial than the Yuzhou conference. The Yuzhou conference demonstrated the Li family's past foundation, while the final maneuver meant the Li family's future potential. The time interval between the two events was so short. Li Honghe and Li Tianlan seemed to really connect the past and the future. Tianlan, are you really going to Tiannan to develop after the final maneuver? Lin Yuxian casually turned off the music in the car and asked with a smile. Li Tianlan came to his senses and nodded. There is a chance there. I don't want to miss it. Do you mind if I go to Tiannan with you to have a look? Lin Yuxian chuckled and took a deep drag on his cigarette. He was leisurely and carefree, and his hands were about to leave the steering wheel. Li Tianlan froze for a moment. Then, he was shocked and sat up straight subconsciously. Are you going to Tiannan, too? He asked. Why? Are you looking down on me? Lin Yuxian said with a smile, I'm not afraid of any of the few young heavenly sons in Zhongzhou state at present. Well, I shouldn't be a match for Xingxiao. What I lack is not sword intent, but realm. I may suffer a little in physical strength, but the difference won't be too big. If I go to Tiannan, I won't be a burden and can still help. I believe you. Li Tianlan looked at Lin Yuxian strangely. Lin Yuxian's current realm was only half a step away from the peak of the thunder-shocking realm. There was no doubt about his talent and inheritance. But he couldn't figure out why Lin Yuxian went to Tiannan. Does Uncle Lin know that you're going to Tiannan? Li Tianlan asked straightforwardly. Yes. Lin Yuxian nodded. He doesn't support or oppose it. Everything depends on my choice. The Lin clan never enters the secular world. Li Tianlan said slowly. Lin Yuxian disapproved of this rule. It's true that we don't enter the secular world. But it's only the people of the Lin clan's headquarters who don't enter the secular world. To be honest, if you hadn't appeared, I might have been in Zhongzhou state now. Zhuanyuantai in Zhongzhou state belongs to the Li family and the Lin clan. If the Li family can't bear the foundation of our ancestors, the Lin clan won't let it go. The original plan was for me to come to Zhongzhou state to set up a branch of the Lin clan. Now that you've appeared, I'm much more relaxed. I've always wanted to say thank you. Now I should go to Tiannan to help you with a little. And maybe I'll find the dark world wonderful in the future and directly set up a branch of the Lin clan in your territory. The future of our age is too changeable. Who can tell? Can I choose this? Li Tianlan found it incredible. Lin Yuxian was the heir of this generation of the Lin clan, and he was the only heir. If he left the headquarters, who would inherit the Lin clan in the future? I couldn't choose before. But now I can choose. Lin Yuxian paused and said calmly, in the next 20 years of the Lin clan, my father has found a helmsman who is better than me, him, and everyone else. I won't hide it from you. It's the sister I just recognized. The dark world is very chaotic now, but this 3-year war will come to an end sooner or later. If there is no accident, this storm will end in Snow Country. At present, the Samsara Palace is in a very bad situation. In the past 3 years, it can be said that the Samsara Palace has single-handedly provoked the scuffle in the dark world. Now all the superpowers have almost reacted, but they can't get off. They can only bite the bullet and fight on. But at the last moment, the Samsara Palace, which has attracted too much hatred, will not have a good end. Its destruction is expected. If the Samsara Palace disappears, my father plans to let my sister take care of the Lin clan for the next 20 years. He looked at Li Tianlan and said meaningfully, not the headquarters of the Lin clan. It's the whole Lin clan. Li Tianlan looked stunned. The whole Lin clan. Even with his current knowledge, he didn't know what it meant. The headquarters of the Lin clan, plus the branches scattered around the world, might be a behemoth that could compete with the Wang family of Beihai. At the very least, it was not much weaker than the general superpowers. In terms of foundation, it was much stronger than the current Samsara Palace. Lin Fengting let Qin Weibai take care of the Lin clan for the next 20 years? Until now, thinking of the first time they met in Lin, and a few days ago, Lin Yuxian called Qin Weibai's sister, Li Tianlan was pondering over the endless aftertaste. Why? Li Tianlan couldn't help asking. This question was simple and complicated, containing too many things. Among these things, the word trust was particularly sensitive. Why did Lin Fengting trust Qin Weibai so much? Because my sister doesn't care about these things. Lin Yuxian whispered, this is what my father told me. She doesn't care about power and interests. For the dark world, my sister really has no desire. Otherwise, the Samsara Palace must be different today. As long as her requirements are met in the things she cares about most, she is the most trustworthy person. What she cared about most, Li Tianlan thought of Lin Yuxian going to Tiannan with him. He seemed to understand something, but he still couldn't help asking, what does she care about most? Your stability. Lin Yuxian's eyes were a little envious. You are what she cares about most. As long as you can be stable, she won't care about anything else. That was why he followed Li Tianlan to Tiannan. In the case that the Samsara Palace was doomed to be destroyed, the loose and united Lin clan might not be able to give Li Tianlan much help, but at least it could provide Li Tianlan with a way out. Li Tianlan thought of what Li Honghe had just said. Behind the inexplicable deep affection, there must be a debt. If there was really a debt, what kind of debt could make her compensate so affectionately and persistently? Li Tianlan shook his head hard and threw away the cigarette but in his hand. He didn't speak for a long time. Lin Yuxian smiled, turned on the music in the car again, and drove in silence. There was one thing he didn't say. He now had a choice not to inherit the Lin clan. If he followed Li Tianlan to Tiannan and eventually established a branch of the Lin clan in Jianghu state. Such a result was the best for Li Tianlan, Qin Weibai, the Li family, the Wang family of Beihai, the Lin clan, and even the Dongqing clan. Lin Yuxian even knew what Li Honghe was worried about. It was said that in the most glorious period of the Li family, there was a beautiful woman who was also very good to Li Guangtu. However, if Qin Weibai went to the Lin clan, there would be no Samsara Palace in the world, and naturally, there would be no old Samsara. Dongqing Rushi, who had been quietly lying in Li Tianlan's arms, moved her body, rubbed Li Tianlan's eyebrows, and whispered, "Are you unhappy?" "No." Li Tianlan smiled. "What about you? You haven't spoken since you got in the car. Are you unhappy?" He told Li Honghe to postpone the wedding in front of Dongqing Rushi. Dongqing Rushi had a reason to be unhappy. No. Dongqing Rushi looked into his eyes. I have something on my mind. Lin Yuxian, who was driving, twitched the corner of his mouth and almost couldn't help laughing. The so-called worry was naturally something that couldn't be said. The daughter of the Dongqing clan was generous, which was too cute. Li Tianlan almost couldn't help it. He touched Dongqing Rushi's hair and chuckled. What's on your mind? Dongqing Rushi was a little hesitant. She turned to look at the night sky outside the car window. Under the night sky, the bright moonlight shone on the highway without street lights, and it was cold. She looked at the cold moon hanging high in the sky and was lost in thought. I seem to have heard a name. Dongqing Rushi's eyebrows furrowed in distress. Her eyes were still pure, but at this time, there was a trace of indescribable calmness and clarity, instead of blankness. Chapter 348. When he returned to Huading, it was nearly 1:00 in the morning. The turbulent mid-July had completely passed. July 21st. There were still 10 days before the final maneuver. Li Tianlan did not return to the Sky Academy but went directly to the East Emperor Palace on the outskirts of the city. It was windy late at night in Huading, and it seemed that rain was coming. The glass palace, which could be said to be quite colorful in the whole of Huading, was silent and cold in the night. The security guard at the gate of the East Emperor Palace opened the door, and the Audi slowly drove into the East Emperor Palace. Looking at the huge palace in front of him, which was mostly made of glass, Lin Yuxian was amazed. The palace was exquisite and magnificent, and the artificial lake around it was clear and charming. In the dark of the night, the light from the glass and the lake reflected off each other. It was as if the lake had risen directly into the sky, or as if the palace had been built in the water. It was ethereal, without the slightest bit of vulgarity. What a good place. Lin Yuxian said with a smile, Is this your lair? Sort of. Li Tianlan nodded and smiled. It's just the beginning. It looks gorgeous on the outside, but there's nothing inside. Nothing? Lin Yuxian smiled strangely. He was indeed a person who was easy to get along with. He was so casual that he seemed to have no pursuit. Although it was not a long journey from Lin and to Huading, Li Tianlan had already established some good feelings for him. He was such a brother-in-law, with great strength but was too lazy to steal any limelight. His motto was to enjoy others' happiness, so Li Tianlan could not help but appreciate him. Li Tianlan responded casually, but he saw Lin Yuxian glancing at Dongqing Rushi with a gloating face. He glanced at Dongqing Rushi with a baffled look. Dongqing Rushi stood beside Li Tianlan, raised her head, and looked at the glass palace in front of her. Following her gaze, he vaguely saw a slim figure standing behind an open window on the top floor of the glass palace. The moment Li Tianlan saw her, the open window was closed, and then the whole palace was lit up. The light shone from the inside out and fell on the artificial lake in front of them. The sparkling lake and the bright palace were like a dream. Brother-in-law, who is inside? Lin Yuxian said with a smile. The way he called him brother-in-law was really teasing. Li Tianlan coughed as if he was answering Lin Yuxian's question, but his eyes fell on Dongqing Rushi. It's Yuetong, he said simply. Wang Yuetong had been staying in Huading. In the first 2 days, she lived in the hotel, and then she moved directly to the East Emperor Palace. The little princess, who had just turned from a girl to a woman, was very clingy. No matter what Li Tianlan was doing before, she would call him every once in a while. However, since Li Tianlan went to Linhan, Wang Yuetong had not called him or even sent him a text message. But the fact that she was still here spoke volumes. Li Tianlan's eyes were warm. I know her. Dongqing Rushi nodded and said softly. Li Tianlan thought she would continue to say something, but after the 4 words, Dongqing Rushi, there was no more. How could such an attitude be ambiguous? She had no attitude at all. Li Tianlan felt a headache and subconsciously began to imagine the scene of Dongqing Rushi and Wang Yuetong meeting later. The door of the summer palace opened. Wang Yuetong stood at the door, bathed in the crystal light. She wore a moon-white nightgown, looking a little lazy and charming. Dongqing Rushi quietly put her little hand in Li Tianlan's. Li Tianlan felt a little helpless. He took Dongqing Rushi's hand and said softly, "Let's go in. I'll just walk around." Lin Yuxian laughed and whispered, "Although I like crowds, I'm not interested in the scene of domestic violence. This place is good. I'll just walk around. Don't worry about me." Li Tianlan cursed in a low voice, "F***ck your domestic violence," and took Dongqing Rushi to the door. Wang Yuetong stood quietly in front of the door. Her big eyes were full of complicated emotions. She was a little uneasy and a little panicked. Dongqing Rushi looked calmly at the carvings on the marble pillars at the entrance of the summer palace without saying a word. "Why didn't you call me these days?" Li Tianlan whispered, "I thought you went back to Yuzhou." Wang Yuetong shook her head subconsciously and whispered, "If I go back to Yuzhou, will I never see you again?" "How come?" Li Tianlan shook his head and reached out to touch Wang Yuetong's hair. His voice was warm. "Do you know what happened in Linmen?" Wang Yuetong bit her lip and said nothing. She was the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai, but she couldn't represent anyone. She couldn't even say sorry to Li Tianlan. This obviously uneasy but unable to say anything was the most embarrassing and heavy position. Li Tianlan sighed and held Wang Yuetong in his arms. He was still holding Dongqing Rushi's hand. Or it could be said that he was held by Dongqing Rushi, while his other hand was holding Wang Yuetong. The posture was a little weird. Wang Yuetong was silent. Dongqing Rushi was still studying the carvings on the pillars beside her. "Tianlan, don't you blame me?" Wang Yuetong held Li Tianlan tightly and asked nervously. At that time, she knew what happened in Lin, and almost immediately. Her original sweet and happy little thoughts were also covered with a layer of shadow. In the past few days, Wang Yuetong could be said to have lived like a year. Now that she was in Li Tianlan's arms, she suddenly felt relaxed. "Why should I blame you?" Li Tianlan asked with a smile. Wang Yuetong wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. The invincible realm expert who seriously injured Senior Li with one sword in Lin, and was her biological father. More than 20 years after the Li family was destroyed, the Wang family of Beihai showed its position to the remaining Li family for the first time. The two families used to be very close, but now the contradiction was so sharp and obvious. "What happened in Lin, then?" Wang Yuetong hesitated. "What happened in Lin, and has nothing to do with you." Li Tianlan said calmly, "That's the choice of the entire Wang family of Beihai. Yuetong, I don't blame you, because you can't decide anything. But it doesn't mean that I don't have any thoughts about the Wang family of Beihai. Between you and me, no one is sorry to anyone, let alone right or wrong. But since we have different positions, and what happened in Lin and happened, I must write it down. To be honest, I don't hate the Wang family of Beihai or your father. But since he chose to attack the Li family, my counterattack in the future will certainly not be peaceful." He paused, looked at Wang Yuetong, and continued, "As for you, I thought you would go back to Yuzhou without saying a word. If you really go back to Yuzhou, I won't blame you. If you are still here, I won't blame you. You, a woman, can still persist in the situation that the Wang family of Beihai and the Li family are against each other. Why should I, a man, give up? It's not that I don't have this responsibility. Otherwise, you are really blind." "Really?" Wang Yuetong raised her head in Li Tianlan's arms, with tears in her eyes. It could be seen how much pressure and suffering she had suffered in the past few days. "Of course it's true. You are my woman. If you don't let go, I certainly won't let go." Li Tianlan pinched Wang Yuetong's little nose dotingly, very gently. Dongqing Rushi squeezed Li Tianlan's hand hard, very heavily. Li Tianlan felt a pain in his palm, and then he remembered that he had ignored the daughter of the Dongqing family. "Let me introduce." Li Tianlan bit the bullet and said, "This is Dongqing Rushi, and this is Wang Yuetong. Even if you haven't met before, you should have heard of each other. Silence. There was an awkward silence that made people's scalps numb. Wang Yuetong lay in Li Tianlan's arms. Dongxing Rushi held Li Tianlan's hand. The two seemed not to hear Li Tianlan's words, and they didn't even bother to do the most basic courtesy. Li Tianlan subconsciously thought of Qin Weibai. If she was here, Li Tianlan thought about it, and he really wasn't sure what kind of scene it would be if Qin Weibai was here. He suddenly looked forward to that scene. Li Tianlan stood for a while. Seeing that the two didn't want to talk, he sighed softly and was about to speak. Dongxing Rushi moved her palm. Wang Yuetong stood up from Li Tianlan's arms and said softly, "I'll prepare the bath water for you. Stay with me tonight. I have something to tell you." A charming blush appeared on her face, and she whispered, "I'm ready." The corner of Li Tianlan's mouth twitched, and he took a deep breath. Before he spoke, Wang Yuetong continued, "There is a document in the study, from the Sky Academy. You can take a look at it when you have time." She turned directly to the bathroom. Dongxing Rushi was still quietly looking at the flowers and plants engraved on the marble pillar. From beginning to end, Dongxing Rushi and Wang Yuetong seemed to ignore each other and never looked at each other. Was this considered jealousy? Wang Yuetong's figure disappeared. Dongxing Rushi finally turned her head and looked at Li Tianlan. The light in the hall shone on the door. Her eyes were pure and penetrating. "Will you accompany me tonight?" Dongxing Rushi looked at Li Tianlan with burning eyes. She squeezed Li Tianlan's hand, turned her head, and whispered, "If you accompany me, I can do what I did for you at my sister's house again." Her voice was low, and her face was flushed. Dongxing Rushi. Wang Yuetong. One on the left and the other on the right. Both sides were temptations. Li Tianlan almost collapsed. He forced himself to calm down and said helplessly, "I won't go anywhere tonight. I'll meditate in the study." There were 10 days before the final maneuver. At this time, he really should seriously adjust his state. Dongxing Rushi said faintly, "Oh." Li Tianlan took her to the top floor and arranged a bedroom for Dongxing Rushi next to his bedroom. The 3 bedrooms were next to each other. Li Tianlan was in the middle, and Dongxing Rushi and Wang Yuetong were on the left and right. Lin Youxian's bedroom was arranged next to Yudonglai's. The old man had been living here. At this time, he seemed to be meditating, so Li Tianlan did not disturb him. After doing all this, Li Tianlan went to the study downstairs. The document from the Sky Academy that Wang Yuetong said was placed in the center of the desk. It was said to be a document, but in fact, it was just a letter. Li Tianlan opened the envelope and read it with no expression on his face. He had read this letter a few days ago, but it was not for him, but for Dongxing Rushi. In addition to the relatively formal letter, all the students who were qualified to receive this letter also received a phone call from the teachers of the 2 academies. Li Tianlan's phone call was from Zhuang Huayang, the principal of the Sky Academy. Today was July 21st. At 3:00 in the afternoon on July 23rd, Gu Xingyun, the governor of Kunlun City, would come to Huading accompanied by Gu Qianchuan, the first elder, to talk with the top 50 people on the total credit list of the 2 academies. At that time, all the contents, order, and rules of the maneuver would be fully announced. Li Tianlan threw the letter on the table. He sat in the chair and closed his eyes. He did not meditate. He was sleeping. Now was the only way for him to reach his peak state as soon as possible. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.